My job is treating me like crap after I took some paid time off to deal with the fact that I just had a heart attack, as they literally kept messaging me and calling me, demanding that I still work even though my heart was seriously needing some time to heal. So I decided to get some revenge by deciding to start a new job 2 days after my PTO ends, because I know for a fact that these people will not allow me to take a 2-week notice, and they will only use this opportunity to try and screw me over. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I'm sitting at home right now wondering if they will figure all of this out. I have 81 hours of PTO on the books. On Fridays, I teach a class on first aid and CPR. I'm the only one who is trained and certified to teach this class for the company that I work for. On a Friday after teaching the class, I had left work with only an hour left in my day. Well, I then went to the hospital and found out I suffered a heart attack, and I'm back at work on Tuesday mornings as I only work Tuesday through Friday. I was reading the PTO policy and noticed if you voluntarily terminate your employment with the company, you will lose your PTO with no chance of a cash-in or a buyout. Now, being the guy who follows the rules, I put in for 80 hours of PTO to recover from my heart attack. My boss was super upset about the amount of time I'll be off because I will not be there to cover his vacation. I then went to Human Resources and I filed this as an FMLA medical requirement before telling my boss. And you know what? During my time off, I've been bombarded with numerous telephone calls asking me why I'm not answering my emails. I told my boss I get paid to read emails and I'm on PTO, so please let me rest and recuperate. I will see you when I get back. An old colleague of mine reached out and asked me if I would like to come teach at their corporation. The pay is about 35% more than what I'm currently making, and I really liked working for this individual. So I filled out an application, and when they asked for the start date, I gave the date as 2 days after my PTO ends. Well, today is my last day of PTO, and in the morning, I'll give them notice of my last day of work, which will be the end of business on Sunday. So am I the jerk for caring about myself first before the company that I work for? I know for a fact I will not give them a 2-week notice, as I've been with this company for 5 years, and I've seen many people leave and get screwed over by this company with or without a 2-week notice. What should I do? Oh my gosh, this is one of those scenarios where no one else matters except for you. You've got to take care of yourself and you've got to do what's right for you. And trust me, these people suck and there is so much evidence to back that up. Like, first of all, the fact that they're calling you on PTO and are seriously expecting you to work after you had a heart attack, like, that's crazy to me, and I just can't believe that they would be that obtuse. And also, it sounds like you know this company, and you know for a fact if you give a 2 weeks notice, they're not going to give you anything that you need. They're going to screw you over, and they're going to use that time to make you feel like crap. And I don't know if anyone else has paid attention to this, but it seems like nowadays 2-week notices are just pointless. They don't do anything, and if anything, it gives the company a chance to like really hurt your reputation or your future job. There's never any happy send-off. It's never seen as a good thing. It's only seen by the company as like, oh wow, they're leaving us. I guess it's time to screw them over instead of having a smooth transition. Like, I've seen that 100 times at this point. It's just so stupid. So I think you're doing this the right way, and I think this really would be the best case scenario for you, because seriously, it sounds like you deserve way better than these people. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for refusing to keep babysitting my brother just so my mom can go out every night and go partying? Because after I said no, she got super pissed off, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So I still live at home because rent is insane where I live, and I'm trying to pay off some student loans. I help out around the house with dishes and laundry and just basic stuff. I also have a full-time job and a part-time side hustle, so my days are packed. Now, here's the issue. My mom had my little brother kind of late in life, and she's recently gotten super into going out to bars and clubs and having wine nights and that kind of thing. And I'm just thinking, cool, good for her, live your life. But she started treating me like her built-in babysitter. It started as the occasional Friday night, and then it was Fridays and Saturdays, then some weeknights. And now she'll just drop a text message that says, hey, I'm going out, dinner's in the fridge, and then be gone before I'm even home from work. No asking, no heads up. I just come home and surprise, surprise, it's homework, bath time, and bedtime stories all over again. Now, I love my brother. He is a sweet kid, but I'm not his parent, and I never agreed to be. Well, last weekend, I had plans with my friends for the first time in a month, and she told me that morning she needed me to watch my brother because she was going on a date. And you know what? I said no. And by the way, I was polite, but I was firm. And when I said this, she was pissed off, like full-on guilt-tripping mode. She said to me, you live here for free. The least you could do is help me out. But I reminded her I already help out with the house, and she didn't even ask me. She just informed me. She ended up canceling her date and gave me the silent treatment for 2 days. Then she told me I was being selfish selfish and that when she was my age, she already had 2 kids and didn't get to run off and have fun. But now I'm kind of feeling awful. I do live under her roof and I do want her to be happy, but I also feel like I'm being taken advantage of just because I'm convenient. So am I the jerk for saying no? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you are not the jerk here. This is insane behavior. Seriously, she's taking advantage of you being there and not even giving you proper notice. Because I'm like you, listen, if you give me enough notice, I can help out where I can. But the fact that this is literally every night and she's ignoring the fact that she has duties to her kid, like, dude, this is not okay and it's not your responsibility. So no, you're not the jerk, and I think the way your mom's acting is super entitled. Am I overreacting for being shocked when a boat party host asked me to pay for food, drinks, and boat fuel afterwards? Because right now I feel like I've been completely tricked, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my friend, let's call him Jake for the sake of the story, invited me to a party on his friend's boat. I'd never met the guy before, but from what I do know about him, he is wealthy because he's a surgeon. I figured it would be a cool experience, so I decided to say yes. Now the boat was actually really nice. There were beers, seltzers, and some mid-shelf liquor. The host had ordered trays of food, namely wings, sliders, and fruit, etc., and even brought out a jet ski at one point. And I'm not gonna lie, it kind of made me feel like crap about myself just by how nice this guy really had it. Anyways, it was a great day, and we were out there for maybe about 4 or 5 hours. I had a few drinks, ate some food, I relaxed, and I met some people. And everything seemed super casual until we got back to the dock. That's when the host says to everyone, "Hey guys, can you just Venmo me $40 for the food, $35 for the drinks, $50 for gas, and $10 for the jet ski? That would be awesome." Now, I really thought he was joking, but everyone pulled out their phones like this was to be expected in some way. I then pulled Jake aside and I asked him what in the world was going on. And he then says to me, "I should have mentioned it, my bad." And it's like, yeah, no kidding, you really should have said something about that. And it's not even just the money though, it's just the way that it was handled. I would have been fine if I was told in advance, but springing it on people after the fun's been had is a really sleazy way of doing things, especially for a literal surgeon who owns a boat. If I had known this was basically a $150 group outing, I would not have gone along with it. I had like $100 to last me the rest of the weekend, which makes sense because I'm a college student, and now I feel like I'm stuck. Either I don't pay and I look like a leech, or I send what I can and still come off as weird. It's been a day now and the host is texting Jake when I'm going to pay, and at this point I'm not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, I would not be paying any of this and I would be messaging the host directly. I would say, look, I didn't know anything about this. Jake literally did not say to me that this was a paid event, because if I'd known it was a paid event, I would not have even gone along with this. You would have stayed home and not gone to this stupid thing. Like, I would legitimately explain everything going on and be like, look, I'm really sorry, but I have no money. I'm a poor college student, man. Like, I wouldn't have gone if I'd known about this. And then I would leave it at that and then never listen to Jake ever again. Like, Jake's a moron for acting like this and not telling you in advance that, yeah, it's gonna cost some money. And in my opinion, I think Jake should be covering for you. Jake didn't give you the full explanation of what the host was actually doing here. And now you're getting screwed and it's like, wait a second, how is this fair for me? I didn't know about this ahead of time. I would have gone. So no, you're not overreacting, because the way Jake just completely left out information, you know, important information for like the entire situation, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my roommate move out after they broke our lease early and left me to figure everything else out by myself? Because right now I am incredibly pissed off. Here's what's going on. I'm a 26-year-old female and I've been living with a roommate for almost 2 years. And back in March, we renewed our lease for another full year. Things were pretty normal. There was no major drama. We split rent and utilities evenly, and mostly we just did our own thing. Well, a few weeks ago, my roommate got a new job in another city, and it's like, cool, good for them. But they gave me 2 weeks notice that they were moving out and had already spoken to the landlord about getting their name off the lease. No plan, no subletter lined up, nothing. They basically just said, I figure you could cover things for a while until you find someone. Well, I told them that wasn't going to work for me. I didn't agree to live alone, and I definitely can't afford this place on my own, but they brushed it off and basically said I should be supportive of their big opportunity and that I'd figure something out. Well, fast forward to moving day and they asked if I could help them carry furniture, load the U-Haul, clean up, etc. But you know what? I told them no. I said it didn't feel right helping out after the way they left me with everything. They then got really cold after that and told some of our mutual friends that I was being bitter and making their move more stressful out of spite. Now, some people are saying I should have just helped to be the bigger person and that it wouldn't have killed me to lift a few boxes. But others agree with me and say it was pretty bold of them to expect help after bailing. So am I the jerk for refusing to help my roommate move out after they dumped the lease on me? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. I always love the fact that people who are like, oh yeah, you need to be the bigger person and help out. Those are the very people who probably, chances are, didn't help out in the first place at all. Like, Like they're literally trying to be like, oh yeah, you should be the bigger person. I can't believe you. And at the end, they're still not doing anything. So it's like, okay, you just wanted a virtue signal. Got it. You just wanted to take sides and be like, oh, I'm loyal to my friend, be the bigger person and help them move, even though they're screwing you over. Because in my opinion, what the roommate's doing here is so unbelievably toxic. The least they could do is find someone else to take over while they're leaving. But instead, it kind of comes off as if they're just dropping everything and running to this new city. And it's like, cool, get a new job, do all that stuff, etc. But for this roommate to cut and run like that and not be like, okay, let me help you find somebody else, like that's insane behavior and I just would hate to have to deal with that. So no, of course you're not the jerk. And anyone who says you are, in my opinion, is completely delusional. My entitled cousin hired me to build a cake for her boyfriend's birthday, but after she picked it up, she's now refusing to pay for it, claiming that I never told her the price and that I'm now blindsiding her. And now, despite the fact that I did inform her well before I even started the cake, exactly the price I would be expecting, she's now going around telling everybody that I'm the jerk here. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I want to start off by saying that I bake cakes as a side gig. Nothing super fancy, but I've done cakes for birthdays, graduations, and stuff like that. People usually message me and I give them a price and then they pay me. Well, a few weeks ago, my 27-year-old cousin asked if I can make a red velvet 2-tier cake with cream cheese frosting for her boyfriend's birthday. She even sent a TikTok video and said I want it exactly like this. I told her it's going to be $120 and she said perfect. Now I spent hours making it, and when she picked it up, she said it looked amazing and then she left, and that was it. No payment or anything. Now I waited a few days and sent a Venmo request, but she just completely ignored it. I even texted her a week later and asked nicely about the payment, and she just said to me, oh, I didn't think you were charging me. I thought it was a gift. Now she ordered the cake and I never said it was free. I even gave her a price and she agreed. And now she's telling people I blindsided her and that I care more about money. I came here to share because I'm just so angry right now. All I wanted was to be paid for my time and ingredients, and instead I'm getting screwed over in a really bad way. Oh my gosh, this is so bad. Why is it that family always does this kind of crap? They're the people that step up and say, oh, it was a gift, or they try and demand like, oh, I want a discount. And it's like, dude, I can't give a discount. This is literally something I do on the side to pay for rent. And it does not matter that this is just a side gig. This is literally something you're doing for money, so guess what? They need to pay you. So hopefully they pay you for your work, because this is not an easy thing to do. And the fact that she's trying to lie and be like, oh yeah, you never told me the price. You're just trying to blindside me because you only care about money. Like that whole narrative is so false and so toxic, it's not even funny. My boss freaked out when I told them I was putting my notice in for resignation, as she now literally just isn't accepting the fact that I'm leaving and almost wants me to stay longer despite the fact that I'm gone at the end of the month. And now I feel really guilty and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to get right to the point, I gave my boss a letter yesterday resigning from my position doing reception work. I cited the main reasons being that I want to have a shorter commute since my fiance and I are looking to purchase a home in our current community. I also noted that I need to have health and retirement benefits, two things that she does not provide. Lastly, I stated that I want to be closer to where my fiance and I are going to establish our lives together, as well as where we're going to start a family, etc. I've had to miss many family events or important events related to my fiance's work due to the commute, as well as the hours I work. These are certainly not the only reasons for leaving. However, I wanted to refrain from personal criticisms or from hurting feelings. I thought it would be best to list the things that she couldn't or wouldn't change just to keep me. She then asked if I would stay until they found a replacement, and I agreed. I figured that would be about 2 weeks, but today my coworker was making a schedule for July, and she was talking about my days, and I was so confused. I said I didn't intend on being here through July. I told her and my boss that I am willing to stay through June 30th, and that I would help train any new hire, but I also reiterated that I felt giving 17 days notice is more than enough. Also, it's important to note that there are 3 other employees that do this exact job. Well, she then started to guilt me by saying she expected more, and that she's disappointed, and that she doesn't even want me to stay through mid-July now. So seriously, is my notice unreasonable? Should I just leave now since I have no contractual obligation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, your boss is being a complete jerk. She is seriously being so selfish. This is not your problem. You gave them a notice of when you would be leaving, and guess what? That's their problem to figure out. The fact that she's still not admitting that, hey, you're leaving on June 30th is insane in my opinion. She literally tried to be like, oh yeah, I don't even want you staying through mid-July. And it's like, hello, Earth to boss, I'm not staying that long. I'm gone at the end of the month. What are you doing? Like, she's only guilt tripping you, by the way, because she doesn't want to find a replacement. She's too lazy to do it, and she doesn't want to take the time to do it, even though you said you would help train the person who would be replacing you. So no, you're not the jerk, and the fact that any of this is being pinned on you is absolutely insane. And if anything, let this this be evidence that, yeah, you probably should get out of there? Because I just really don't think there's any kind of longevity with this kind of boss. Am I the jerk for pretending I didn't know my friend was on a date when she literally dragged me along telling me that it was just going to be the two of us? Because right now she is incredibly upset with me, but I seriously don't think I did anything wrong. Here's what's going on. Okay, so this just happened a few nights ago, and now she's acting weird about it, and I'm wondering if I messed up. So my friend, who I will call Emily for the sake of the story, asked me if I wanted to go to this ramen spot that we both love. She said to me, let's grab some dinner, I have some tea to spill. So I was like, cool, let's do it, girl night vibes. I even wore sweats and no makeup because I thought it was just gonna be us chilling and talking crap about people from high school just like we usually do. But when I get there, she was already sitting with this dude. She waves me over and goes, oh hey, this is Mark. I hope you don't mind, I told him to join. Which is like, okay, I guess. I went ahead and I sat down, but it was weird right away. Like she was being flirty and kind of giggly with him, and I was just sitting there like the third wheel who didn't get the memo. I tried to keep conversation going and be polite, but I was also kind of annoyed. Like if it's a date, just say it's a date. I would have dressed up a little bit or just said no altogether. Anyways, I started to suspect she invited me on purpose so it wouldn't feel too intense for her or something like that. So you know what? I just kind of leaned into it. I started talking to Mark more, asking him silly questions like, oh, what's your favorite dinosaur? And just being a little chaotic. Nothing mean, just not acting like it was a romantic setting, which made her super quiet after a while. After dinner, she texted me like, thanks for coming, but I think you kind of made things awkward. And I just said to her, oh, I didn't realize it was a date. You said you had tea to spill, not Tinder. Well, now she hasn't replied in 2 days, and our group chat is weirdly quiet. My other friend says I probably embarrassed her, and I should have just made an excuse to leave once I realized, but I kind of feel like I was upset. Like I would not have come along if I knew I was going to be a prop in her soft launch. So truly, am I the jerk for pretending not to realize it was a date and making it awkward for some reason? Or is that on her for not telling me up front? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I can confidently say the original poster is not the jerk. Your friend is an idiot. What are they doing? Why would they invite you someplace and be like, ooh, I've got tea to spill, only for them to like pull a fast one and be like, oh yeah, by the way, this is going to be a date for me and Mark. It's like, dude, what are you doing? If I had known this was a date, I definitely would not have come along. Because dude, I'm right there with you. There's no way I would stick around for that. I don't care what it is. I don't want to be the third wheel. That is so awkward. Good Lord. And I'm sure Mark was feeling the awkwardness as well. He probably was like, oh cool, I get to go on a date with this one girl that seems kind of cool. Only to see her friend also there tagging along in sweatpants and just not looking like they're dressed up for a date at all. Like that's super awkward, and I don't blame you for being upset. So no, you are not the jerk. Emily's an idiot for what she did, and in my opinion, this is not your fault. An entitled jerk literally tries to get me to work for free, forcing me to nearly take him to court just so he could pay me for my work. But in the end, I got the last laugh, as this guy went out of business a few weeks later. Here's how it all went down. A long time ago, when I was first getting started in graphics, a company listed an ad looking for someone with my exact skills. Well, I applied, and the guy said he wanted some proof saying I needed to work for him, which now leads to showing him what I'm capable of. Now, this was a company wanting to make templates for sandblasting so that they could put logos on such things as glasses and stuff like that. The templates were produced on a large laser printer that melted holes in plastic sheeting to create the stencils. Now, the problem is that they could not figure out how to create a stencil in this process, but I figured out the problem in a matter of hours and produced 2 or 3 usable templates that could prove that yes, I'm capable for the job. Now, the owner gave me a list of items to create, but still refused to actually hire me. He then called me a couple of days later and said to return anything I had created with no pay. Well, I had a lawyer friend create a letter explaining my rates for personal work and how we would expedite it to court if he really wants to go this route. Well, to make a long story short, he ended up paying me for the work. About a week later, some girl calls and asked me to explain to her how I created the templates that I did. And I knew without asking that she was probably also working for him in the same way I was. But I told her simply, tell your boss to call me because he knows my rates. Well, I wish I'd been there when she got off the phone because eventually his company went straight out of business a few weeks later. And I don't think there's ever been a better candidate for this to happen to. Dude, this is so toxic. I can't believe that we have yet another story of someone being like, oh, I need you to do this work, but no, I'm not going to pay you. Like you even had to go as far as saying, look, I'll take you to court. Let's do this. If you want to go straight to a judge and figure this out, we can do that, baby. Or you can pay me for my work and then all of this goes away, buddy. Like this guy's a scumbag for doing this. Like this is so crazy to me. I will never understand why some people are like, oh yeah, you're going to work for free and you're going to like it. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I have bills to pay. I've got rent I'm trying to make. I've got groceries and medicine. There's no way I'm going to work for free and I don't care what it is. This is not a charity. This is business. And if you can't abide by that business, then guess what? That's your problem, not mine. So good for you for putting your foot down down and not allowing this crap to happen, because this guy's a scumbag and he got exactly what he deserved. An entitled Disney dad freaks out when a Make-A-Wish family cuts in line to see a character at Disney World, as he literally makes a scene about their kid cutting in line, saying that he wished that his kid had a disease so that they could cut lines all the time. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's awful statements. Here's what happened. Okay, so at Disney World, we have quite a few Make-A-Wish families, and if you're not familiar with Make-A-Wish, it's an organization that grants wishes to very sick children. These kids are often terminally ill, and it breaks my heart every time they come to visit the characters. Everybody in the room always gets very emotional. Make-A-Wish families get special treatment in the parks, as they should. These kids usually cannot wait in long lines, so if you have a Make-A-Wish pass, you have a fast pass for everything. And for rides, it's easy. Just send the family through the fast pass lane. But for characters, it can get a bit tricky. We have some characters that meet outside, and therefore don't have a fast pass lane. There's one queue, and you can see how many people are in front of you, since there aren't any twisty queue lines that go through a building. In this case, Make-A-Wish families just come up to the character attendant, which is the person that takes care of the character, which in this case is me, and shows us their special pass. We go over to the next family in the regular line, inform them that the Make-A-Wish family is going to cut in front of them, and after they're done, that next family will get their turn. Usually, people are hot and sweaty and tired, but they get it, and they wave me away with a quick, "Oh, it's no problem." Sometimes their kids get a bit frustrated because they don't understand why the Make-A-Wish kid can get to cut in front of everybody, but the parents explain that they're doing a good deed by letting a really sick kid go first. Sometimes people get huffy, but I just ignore them. They'll be fine to wait another minute. Well, occasionally people get really upset because they don't know what Make-A-Wish means, but it's oftentimes pretty obvious that the kid is very sick, so people can put two and two together with context clues, and we can always explain if they still don't get it. But for the most part, American families have heard of Make-A-Wish and know what that means. However, people can still get really mad. I had a friend who was character attending with Princess Aurora who saw a Make-A-Wish family let the next family in line know what was going on and was shocked to hear the entitled dad's response. And this is honestly one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. They say to this family's dad, "I'm sorry, sir. This Make-A-Wish family is going to go first. Thank you so much for your patience." This entitled jerk then says, "Are you kidding me? We've been waiting forever. This is ridiculous." My friend then says, "I'm sorry, sir," and then shot him a really confused look and turned away to focus on the Make-A-Wish family. This entitled Disney dad then says something that honestly blew our minds. "Wow, I wish my kid had a disease so that they could cut all the lines." And he muttered this under his breath, probably louder than he intended to. Well, when he said that, everybody froze. Princess Aurora, my friend who was working, the family behind this entitled Disney dad, and the Make-A-Wish family all turned to stare at this idiot. Aurora was pissed and said something to the effect of, "Well, that wasn't a very princely thing to say," before turning her attention to the Make-A-Wish little girl. Her mom looked like she was about to cry, and my friend barely kept his composure, went right over to this guy and said, "I bet our friends here would give anything to be in your shoes, don't you think?" The family behind this entitled jerk also grumbled about him being rude and horrible. Well, this guy knew that he had put his foot in his mouth. His daughter was oblivious to the entire thing, thankfully, as she was quietly playing with her Barbie and barely even blinked when she was told that she'd have to wait a bit longer to see Aurora. During their turn, Aurora was cold towards the entitled dad, but great with the daughter. They had a long talk about how a real princess is kind and patient and compassionate towards others. After it was all said and done, the entitled Disney dad slunk away, and I honestly hope he learned from his awful behavior. Oh my gosh, that is honestly so unbelievably horrible. I can't imagine someone being so out of touch and so obtuse that they would say something so devastating. Like seriously, who in their right mind would say something like that in front of a family who is clearly suffering? There was no reason for that kind of language or to say something like that. Like this kid is already suffering enough, and this guy's literally only thinking about the line in front of him, not about the little kid that probably will not make it in a few years, if that. What a horrible human being, like seriously. In the back of my head, I kind of wish he would have been kicked out of the park for that comment, but I can understand why he had to stay in line because that probably would have been a bad look for everybody all around. But regardless, good for everybody involved for the way they handled this, especially with Aurora basically putting this guy in his place by teaching the daughter a lesson, because that guy is an absolute monster for the things that he just said. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my girlfriend bring her dead dog's ashes on vacation? Because right now she is very pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I have been together for 4 months, and she had a dog that died a few months ago before we met. I have only ever spent the night at her place. I live with my sister and her 2 kids, so it is a little chaotic at my place. ashes. My girlfriend has a small urn on her bedside table that has her dog's ashes in it, and it's maybe 2 to 3 inches tall. Before she turns off her lamp to go to sleep, she always gives it a little tap on the top and says goodnight as though she is talking to the dog. And I think it's weird, but I never have said anything about it. We were supposed to go away for the weekend, and on Friday I was watching her pack, and I noticed that she took the urn and put it in the top pocket of her backpack. I asked her what she was doing, and she said she didn't want to leave the dog behind. I told her she was not allowed to bring the urn as it made me very uncomfortable. I didn't want to see it anytime we returned to our hotel room. I didn't want her talking to her dead dog after we spent quality time together. It's weird, and frankly, she's been mourning this dog for too long. Now, she didn't argue, but instead, she simply started to unpack her bag. She told me to have fun on the weekend getaway, as she would not be coming along. I then asked if she was seriously choosing a dog's ashes over me, but she said she was choosing herself over me, as I could have spoken to her with some kindness and empathy, but I didn't. She also said that I didn't get to dictate how long she's allowed to grieve, and then she asked me to leave. She hasn't replied to my text messages, and I think she's completely overreacting. And when I talked to my sister, she said that she can see both sides of this argument. So honestly, am I the jerk for thinking my girlfriend is weird for being so attached to her dead dog's ashes? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Oh my gosh, I don't think I've seen anything so insensitive in so long. For starters, yes, to the original poster, I really do think you're the jerk, because this was so uncalled for. Your girlfriend is clearly grieving the loss of her dog. This obviously hit her hard, and she's having a hard time overcoming it. So for you to literally start trying to control her life, all because you find it weird, instead of trying to understand why everything's going wrong, like that is so toxic it's not even funny. Because I know for a fact if I was in the original poster shoes, I would be trying to comfort her and be like, listen, I understand where you're coming from and I want to help. So telling her that she's not allowed to bring her dog's ashes with her on this trip, like that is not okay. Especially when this is not even that big of an urn. It's literally 3 inches tall, like that's nothing. So what if she has it with her on the nightstand? Like, does that really make a difference in your life? This is such an inconsequential thing, you really just should have kept your mouth shut and helped her work through this process of grieving her dog. So yes, you are absolutely the jerk. The way you handled this was completely uncalled for, and I don't blame her for being upset and not wanting to go on this trip. Entitled old people absolutely lose their mind anytime they find out that I'm not religious, causing them to change entirely, showing me that they were hypocrites from the very beginning. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm almost 30 years old, and I was raised by a Christian mom, and honestly, I hated it. I stopped following anything related to religion at around 13 years old, and I never looked back. I completely get why people are religious and follow a higher power, and I'm never rude when I find out someone is religious. I try to abide by their rules, like if there's a dietary restriction or a gift of some kind. I don't like making anyone feel uncomfortable, so I always go out of my way to understand their point of view when it comes to certain topics. But some of these older people, on the other hand, are just completely out of left field. Every time I tell an old person I'm not religious, it flips a switch in them that is honestly just so frightening, to the point where I'm scared to tell people that I'm not religious. They go from being full of smiles and kindness all the way to a massive frown, and they act like I'm Satan. I usually get hit with the biggest and longest and most boring religious bombardment by these people. And at one point, someone yelled "shame on you" in front of everyone when I was at work, and that caught me so off guard. I also find it crazy how they think it's okay to try and inflict a particular fate onto you just because you aren't religious, that I'm apparently destined to be damned for eternity. Like, brother, I was having a bad day. Do you really want to say that? Like, I don't act this way when I see someone wearing a cross. My own mother and many of my aunts are Christians, so like, I know how to act and be respectful. I don't go on any anti-religious tirades to other people. You want to know why? Because it's rude and intrusive. I'm not religious because that's how I want to live my life. Other people are religious because that's how they want to live their lives. It's now gotten to the point where, as of late, I've been invited to churches a lot more often these last 2 years, and I never get a normal response when I tell them I'm not interested. If anything, they start to push even more. Some old woman even pulled into our driveway when my dad was changing a tire and was talking about the church that she goes to and how we should join. And it's like, ma'am, thank you for the invite, but when you see a man laying under a vehicle, maybe you should leave him alone. My one uncle will once in a while send me like 30-minute videos of sermons and Bible readings or scriptures, and it literally offends him to no end when I ask him to stop sending me these things because I'm not a part of his church and I never have been. This then usually results in him sending me more religious material that are usually crudely highlighted or circled as if he's trying to teach me a lesson, and a lesson in what is honestly anybody's guess. No doubt if I send him videos about atheists or agnostics, I know for a fact he would lose his mind. I love how he no longer sees me as his niece that he can just talk to or bond with, and instead some lost soul he he's trying to conjure to his following. It really sucks because I'm still a human being with feelings and emotions. I am literally no different than anyone else, other than I just simply do not want to follow a religion or go to church. Instead of sending me a funny video about a dog or a clip from my favorite TV show, he either completely ignores me or sends me some more weirdly religious stuff I don't understand, because again, I'm not a part of his religion. I just wish these older people would understand that in modern day society, people are choosing to live alternative lifestyles that are virtually harmless and leave people alone. I don't go around asking people to stop being religious. That is literally insane behavior. Some people I used to be close with straight up stopped talking to me when they found out, as if I committed some sort of horrible crime, which baffled me because I knew you were religious and I still loved and cherished you like a normal human being. I don't know, man. It all just really sucks, and I seriously hate being treated this way. Okay, I'm honestly right on the original poster's side because I cannot understand why anyone would act this way. It's one thing to tell someone, hey, you should check out my church, but it's another thing to be super intrusive in this other person's life and then treat them like garbage when they say no or they don't like follow your religion. Because that's like proof right there that you never actually cared. You only cared about them joining your church and nothing else. You were just trying to check some stupid box and that's it. And that, in my opinion, is so hypocritical because I don't know about you, but I could smell BS from a mile away, and I honestly don't care what religion it is. When someone's pushing their religion heavily onto me and I know for a fact they don't actually care about me, it is like a lighthouse in the middle of the night. You can see it from a mile away and it's like, my God, you've got to be kidding me right now. These people don't actually care about me and they only want me to join their religion for some weird selfish purposes. So yeah, these people who are treating you poorly honestly are not good people in the slightest. And I seriously do not blame you for being frustrated. Am I the jerk for not being comfortable in wearing a dress, even though my best friend is asking I wear one to be in her wedding party? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my best friend is getting married in about 6 months. I'm in the wedding party and I would be her maid of honor if not for her sister. I'm a masculine-leaning lesbian with short hair and very androgynous style. Think collared shirts and Carhartt pants. I'm a farmer and an outdoors person, and my style reflects that. I don't think I own anything that would be considered chic or nice. Needless to say, it's been years ever since I've worn a dress. When her and I have talked about her weddings, we always talked about me wearing a cute little suit or jumper type of thing, and she was always totally on board with this, saying, oh, definitely, and that this is the obvious choice. Well, a couple of weeks ago, she sent a message to all the wedding party girls that included a note about what kind of dresses she wanted us to wear, such as the length and the colors, and asking that we show her our choices first before purchasing. I then texted her on the side and I said, I'm okay to wear a suit for the wedding, yes? And she responded with a long message that included things like how she looked up pictures of bridesmaids with suits and how she thought it looked messy and like an outlier. She said I could wear a flowy jumper with wide legs that could look like a dress, but that it may need to be a dress for the day. I was totally surprised by this and very uncomfortable with the idea, and also hurt by the words she used to describe the assumed one lesbian and non-binary person in the bridesmaid lineup photos that she found. Now, I haven't responded yet, but the tension is palpable. I'm not even sure how to respond or if I should push back in some kind of way, but the idea of standing up there in front of so many people I know, as this is a big wedding, in a dress of some kind really just makes me cringe. My other friend I asked about said that she can't even picture me wearing a dress. I know that it's her day, and that my outfit may theoretically detract some attention from her, as I would be the only bridesmaid not in a dress. But is it wrong of her to ask me to go against my gender identity and try to comfort her just for wedding photos? Part of me feels like me wearing a dress would be equally as weird of a distraction because everyone would be wondering why I'm in a dress, since they know me and my style and my gender expression. I don't want to rock the boat or make this about me, but I want to show her that it's disrespectful and hurtful of her to ask that of me. It feels like she wants me up there as a prop and not as my whole self. What should I do? Honestly, I think this might be a good time to step away from the wedding party and just attend as a guest. Like, if that was me and someone put me in that situation and I felt the way that you did about the whole dress thing, then I would be like, look, I understand and I really appreciate it, but I think I just wouldn't be a good fit for this and I'm just going to be a guest. And then just leave it at that, because this obviously is a sticking point for you, and I don't think compromising that in any way is going to solve things. Today, I messed up by getting a server fired over a wrong pizza, resulting in one of the most awkward lunches I've ever had eating out. Here's what happened. Okay, so I went out for lunch today at a local pizzeria. The place was packed and you could tell that everyone was really stressed out, especially the owner, who I am acquainted with relatively well. So I order a pizza and everything seems fine up to this point. Eventually, the pizza arrives and I notice that it's the wrong pizza. I ordered ordered the one that's named after the owner, while the pizza that I got was the one named after the restaurant. The owner just so happened to walk by, so I let him know by saying, "Sorry, but I think we got the wrong pizza." He then muttered the name of the pizza and picked it up, quickly and quietly disappearing into the kitchen. As I waited, I noticed that the owner called the server who took my order into the kitchen. The next thing I heard was the owner giving this guy a severe dressing down that literally could be heard from the dining room, telling him that this is the third or fourth time in the past week that he mixed up the pizza orders and said that wrong orders are getting comped from his paycheck. He then ended it by kicking the server out. I eventually saw the server quickly getting his jacket and leaving the pizzeria. And now I feel like garbage because I feel as if said server would still be here if it weren't for my complaint about the wrong pizza. Now, the ironic part is that I ended up getting another wrong pizza, but I didn't want to sacrifice another server over it, so I just let it go and I ate that one. The pizza was okay, the toppings were just kind of thrown on the dough, collecting in the middle of the pizza in one big pig pile. I ended up giving a big tip before leaving, but I don't think I'm ever going back to that pizzeria ever again. Oh man, this scenario is a nightmare. I'm sure all you wanted to do was eat some pizza and then get out of there. You definitely didn't plan on getting two different pizzas that were not what you ordered, while also getting someone fired in the process. Like, I don't know about you, but that's not how I would ever want to plan my lunch out. So yeah, this wasn't really a mess up on your end. I'm sure that server was probably on thin ice as it is, and you just so happen to be the final straw that broke the camel's back. Because my god, that is not a scenario I would ever want to be in. Am I the jerk for demanding that my fiance's parents change their plans to have a vacation at the same place as our honeymoon? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I have our wedding coming up in April. We had brainstormed for a while on where best to spend our honeymoon, and we went over the more popular and well-known places, but then landed on a more offbeat destination that I felt would truly be a great place for us to start our life as a married couple. I've been looking forward to it just being the two of us, and I know he has a really hectic work schedule, and we were going to make the most out of this no matter what. A couple of days ago, he told me that his parents had been impressed about how hyped I was about it, and we're planning on going there for vacation too, largely overlapping with our dates. And in fact, they're staying at the same hotel as us. And honestly, I was livid. They can go any other time, but why right now? He said that he had suggested that, but his mom said that they had taken time off for the wedding too, and it worked well into their plans. Also, that since we're going to be going back, it will allow them to maybe see us a few times before we leave. I was almost in tears. I was so angry. He tried to reassure me, saying that they'd promise it'll be two separate things and they won't be inserting themselves into our honeymoon. They want us to enjoy it and they'd be doing their own thing. And I want to believe it, but I know his mom. I like her as a soon-to-be mother-in-law, but she can be very clingy and routinely laments how far he and now us are from them. So I just have a feeling that the two plans are not going to be as independent as he thinks they're going to be. I vented about it to my parents too, and my mom agreed with me that it isn't right, and my dad is more on the fence about it as he doesn't think that everything is ruined. I've demanded my fiance make them change their plans, and he says that he asked them to, and they promised to do their own thing. And honestly, what can he do? Tell them that he doesn't believe them and call them liars? Well, I messed up here and I said, well, if that's what it takes, and then he got quiet. I realized that was too much, and I sincerely apologize for crossing a line. This has been eating me up, and I was envisioning a certain type of honeymoon, and then this happens. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I am incredibly pissed off. Oh no, you are not the jerk. This is honestly not okay. You mean to tell me that instead of rescheduling their stupid vacation, they're planning on still going while you guys are on your honeymoon? Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so uncalled for. And they're staying at the same hotel. Like, that is honestly so toxic. There is legitimately no good excuse for that, especially because they know what they're doing. And I guarantee you this is all some kind of ploy to be like, oh, we just happen to run into you. Like, no one's gonna want to go on their honeymoon and deal with this garbage. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. This is uncalled for behavior, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. An entitled realtor parked in my spot in my apartment complex and then decided to give me the biggest attitude on planet Earth when I asked him to move. So I decided to get some petty revenge by playing music as loud as possible to try and ruin this realtor's chance at selling anything in my neighborhood. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I lived in a condo where we all had assigned parking spots, and there are several visitor spots sprinkled throughout. Well, one day I came home in the middle of the weekday, and a vast majority of the parking spaces were empty. So I was very confused as to why a large, unfamiliar SUV was in my spot. Now, we get the occasional visitor that mistakenly or purposefully parks in whatever spot they want. With this in mind, I parked right behind him and approached the window to ask him how long he was planning to be there, and he said to me 45 minutes. I then asked him if he could move to a visitor spot, as there were some directly across from mine, and he said no in the rudest and shrillest voice I've ever heard come out of a man. Then he started going off about how he's a realtor. He's showing this house, you know, the door to which is directly in front of my spot. The property manager said to park here in this spot, even though I highly doubt that, and so on and so forth. So I decided that I didn't have any time or energy for Karens that day, and in the middle of his ranting, I just said, okay then, and walked away to go park in a visitor spot. Rude people really irritate me, especially if they're defending their awful behavior. So I promptly took my revenge. My window faces the parking lot, so I set up my speaker on the windowsill and started blasting hardcore rap music for about half an hour, in the hopes that the buyer decided our quiet little community wasn't quiet enough for them. I figure the vast majority of my neighbors were at work anyways, so 30 minutes of loud music wasn't going to annoy anyone too much. So I really hope I wasted a bunch of his time, because maybe next time don't be rude to complete strangers, especially if you're parking in their spot. Yeah, if anyone's parking in my spot and then talking to me like that, I'm gonna make their life a living nightmare. Whether that's playing music really loud like the original poster did, or even calling a tow truck company, which by the way, you would have been well within your right to do. So good for you for getting back at this guy, because the way he acted was completely unacceptable. An entitled jerk tries to force me out of business by suing me into oblivion, all because I broke up the monopoly he had in our area. But as a result, I won every single case this guy brought against me, leaving me and my fiance with a massive payout after he had to settle for a huge amount of money. Here's what happened. I'm 26 years old and I decided to open my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I'm in a small town of maybe 1,000 people in the rural Midwest. Because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with somebody. We went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city 30 minutes away, which is a small city of about 8,000 people, and when we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and I saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of local beer, we were charged $15. Now, I was thinking about this and figured that I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. Back in February, I was furious about my awful job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank, and they told me, hey, with the pandemic, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap. A couple of weeks later, I went in and met with my friend's mom and pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. So then, as a result, I got a loan at a fantastic interest rate. After that, I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper license, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with my distributor, I learned, even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in the city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 35% to a 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store and had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. Now, my hometown is near a national forest. As such, we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year-round. My first week, and that being the week before Memorial Weekend, right after opening, I had made $4,000 in profit. And it was great being my own boss. If someone was rude to me or my girlfriend, I would just say, oh, you could do business elsewhere. If someone says something awful about my girlfriend's ethnicity, well, they can pay me 15% more at the register. Did the gang and I run out of alcohol? Well, time to grab my keys and go to the store and get some more. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier. But man, it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to pound sand for being a jerk. But trust me, all of our troubles were just beginning, as things took a turn in a way that I honestly never expected. A couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I then rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum any higher. He then walked out of my store and said, well, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer. The next month, a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out, and I decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I Googled the guy, and I soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that that is the guy who owns both the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he is on city council. With a little bit further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, a tavern, or liquor dispensary essentially, will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol. Later, I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor license. And honestly, I just love small town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state, so I decided to call him and try and get some kind of legal advice. I talked to him and I read the documents that I had been handed and served over the phone and the research that I had done. After receiving all of the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some kind of advice, but instead I heard him say, "Hang on, I've got to make a call." And he then hung up. At this point, I'm freaking out, and I was about to post online to try and figure things out in another place, and honestly, I just kind of wanted someone to tell me that it was going to be okay, and that I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. Well, eventually my uncle called me back. He said to me, "Hey, I just got off the phone with my partner, and he agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you would like to accept, we can discuss this at my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Well, this is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 different states. So we meet and we discuss the case, and it turns out that the guy filed a libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his reputation and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but my uncle told me that we would win this case no problem. Well, 3 weeks later and the case is dismissed. But after that, my uncle says the following: "People like that piece of work will likely try to file another suit against you, and if that happens, call me and I promise I will help." Well, the very next day I got served again, but this time I am the defendant. And this is not about my store, but instead it's me. I swear to God, I look at the documentation and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name, mine is listed as the defendant. And this is literally the same thing that happens before, because 4 weeks later the case is dismissed. And over the next 3 months, I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case's hearing, we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were all sitting in this room. The judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already. Is there any way we could come to an agreement that will stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer then says they have an offer and hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially reads that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of the remaining loan principal. I then outright rejected the offer and made a counteroffer instead. I said, "If you drop this case, I won't sue you for harassment." He then busts out laughing. "Sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue you into bankruptcy and buy that crappy store from the bank when you foreclose." Well, the judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason why I was getting sued. My uncle then straight up said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently you were never told. I've taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has ensured a suit against you." After that, we just left, and I was then informed a few days later that the litigation was dropped. Well, right now my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against this guy. I want to sue this guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful because if we set the damages too high, it'll look like we're being vindictive in some kind of way. This suit won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free, essentially, I'm not going to complain. Looking back on this, I'm so thankful that my friends and family supported me the entire way, especially my uncle, because without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my entire business. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they would like to share. Here's what they had to say a year after all of this went down. Okay, so this is a follow-up post that I made last year. For reference, last year I opened a liquor store with my girlfriend, who is now my fiance, in my hometown. The nearby city had a few liquor stores run by a city councilman, who is the person who controls who gets liquor license in said city. With me being 40 minutes away, he was losing business and offered to buy my store. Well, I refused, and instead, he tried to sue me for libel. He attempted to do this for half a year, where he continued to sue me, my business, or anything else he could, until it was thrown out with contempt. Fortunately, I was able to get my lawyer to take the case pro bono, so I didn't get buried in legal fees as the guy intended. And after that, my lawyer and I began to file suit against the guy. So that's where we left off a while ago. As of now, the case is over and I can finally talk about it. So to first explain why I didn't post any updates previously, when I filed the lawsuit, my lawyer said to not post anything about it online. I don't think that this had anything to do with the original post, but what he told me was that if the opposing counsel found a post and was able to link it back to me, they could argue that I was only filing suit to gain online clout. But now the court case is over, so I can now talk to you guys. We filed the complaint about a month after the last case against me was dismissed. dismissed. And what we filed for was multiple accounts of malicious misuse of due process. After filing the complaint, we needed to serve the papers to the guy. Now, someone had to have told him because he dodged getting served for multiple weeks. The only reason the process server was able to serve him was because there was a meeting to approve the transfer of liquor license between two businesses in the city, which if you think about it is really ironic. He and his lawyers answered the complaint and said everything in the complaint and the summons was a deliberate misrepresentation of the facts. None of the suits filed against me were in any way malicious, but given that the only thing that changed between most of the suits was the named defendant, pretty much disproves all of that. He then went on to say that this current suit was simply a move by me to get revenge on him for trying to protect his business. And pretty much the entire answer was just him saying, "No, you did this, not me." After that, we moved into discovery, which I will talk about in a minute. Through the discovery process, there were a couple of motions for dismissal by the defendant's counsel. The first one was just in general that all the facts are wrong, and this was a lawsuit filed in bad faith. This was immediately thrown out by the judge because the 4 suits being filed back to back, with only the defendant being changed, indicated that this was potentially a malicious lawsuit. The second motion was that these weren't malicious because the defendants were different. Effectively, the argument is that if it's the same defendant, then it would be a malicious suit. But because the defendant kept getting changed from suit to suit, that means that there was a legitimate complaint that they were trying to get solved, which technically would be legal and I would have no standing. However, the judge acknowledged that while the argument is legally sound, if you simply look at the wording of the law, it completely violates the spirit that is written within it, and the actions of the defendant only serve to confirm that the previous lawsuits were filed in bad faith. So then the motion was tossed out of court. Later, during discovery, the defendant filed for a venue change, and it seems how we filed in my local court, they argued that the local jury would be biased towards me, and this got dismissed as well because they forgot to ask for a jury trial. We were perfectly fine with proceeding with a bench trial, so we didn't ask for a jury. The judge decided then that because they didn't request a jury, a venue change would not offer any significant change in the trial. They then used that decision and some history I have with the same judge to appeal to the state court to dismiss the case, but they refused. So anyways, back to discovery. The whole process was extremely slow, and we were still in the middle of discovery when we decided to settle. We had received multiple settlement offers up to that point and rejected every single one of them. But at the end of November, the defendant decided to fire the manager of one of his businesses. The former manager then decided to turn over some text messages to the court. You see, we requested all communications about the malicious filings from last year that the defendant had made, and that included any text messages. That showed that neither counsel nor the defendant did the proper diligence to comply with discovery. The defense was then able to get the text removed from the evidence. And while the text might not have been able to be used as evidence if we had proceeded with trial, you can't erase that you hid evidence from the judge's memory. And trust me, they don't tend to take that very well. With this coming to light, the chicanery that the defendant had been pulling, the judge was just over all of this at this point. Our lawyers had to meet with the judge at the beginning of this month in December, where the defense's counsel was reprimanded. After this, the defendant offered a really big settlement, and after my fiance and I discussed it, we decided to accept the offer. Our wedding is now getting closer, and frankly, we don't want to deal with the court stuff anymore. The whole trial process was still months away, and there wasn't any guarantee that we would have gotten any more money. Unfortunately, it's not the nuclear revenge that me and my fiance were hoping for, and although the settlement did pay the remainder of my loan, we will have a nice chunk of money left over as a result of it. Wow, this is a crazy situation. First of all, that guy who owned that other business is a complete scumbag. Like seriously, look at what he tried to do to the original poster and his family. He literally made up multiple lawsuits just to try and get this guy taken down, and he even admits to that in the meeting itself. That must have been a nightmare, and I can only imagine going through that so many times while still trying to maintain some semblance of sanity. So good for you and your uncle for making sure that you came out on top, because this guy's behavior was completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not sharing the parking spot with my roommate, even though we agreed that that spot would belong to me while we're living in a place that I don't want to live in? Because right now they're trying to go back on our deal, and it's honestly stressing me out beyond end. Here's what happened. Okay, so my roommate and I are in college, and we moved into an apartment for the school year. When we were touring places last year, my roommate shut down every place we toured except for one because it didn't have the things that she wanted, namely a washer and dryer unit, walk-in closet bedroom, as well as a certain size living room that she was looking for. The one place that she liked, I eventually agreed to live live in with one requirement. I would get the one parking spot for the school years and she would get it for the summers. And literally, this was my only requirement to live in a place that I didn't like. Fast forward 8 months and we re-signed the lease to live in the same apartment again. Then, out of nowhere, my roommate, who doesn't even have a car or off-campus job by the way, mentioned splitting a street parking pass for the next school year so that we could share the spot, and that she wanted to start in March, even though summer doesn't start until April 28th. She is getting a free car for the summer and school year next year from her boyfriend, and just randomly brought it up like this was normal and part of the agreement. When I mentioned to her that our agreement and my only thing I needed was the parking spot for the school years, which may not be fair, but she agreed to it, she said that only applied for 1 year, as if that was some kind of obvious thing. She waited until we signed the lease to have this conversation, and I honestly would have looked somewhere else to live that had 2 parking spaces if I knew this was what she was thinking. I compromise with her on literally everything because we are friends. She keeps the heat on so high because she's cold. She got the pick of the bathroom that she wanted. She has her boyfriend over every day and I never ever complain. I'm waiting for her to bring up the conversation again to put my foot down and say I'm not street parking for the school year or even splitting the spot for the school year. And I will offer her $150 for the spot, considering a street parking permit is $25. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because this honestly is incredibly annoying. No, you're not the jerk at all. The fact that your friend did this right after you signed the lease, like that is crazy and honestly so toxic, because they clearly knew what they were doing. They did this on purpose, and they did this in such a way where it's like, oh yeah, you have no choice but to agree, because it really sounds like they're gonna try to do this pretty much no matter what, and that really is not fair for you. So no, you would not be the jerk by saying you don't want to share this spot, because this is what you originally agreed on, and the fact that they don't want to honor that, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. Someone from my work is spreading a rumor that I cheated on my girlfriend, and it is now ruining my relationship, and I now feel at such a loss that at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I will preface this by saying that my girlfriend and I have been in a loving relationship for over 4 years. We live together and we have never had any significant issues before. My girlfriend and I attended a housewarming for one of my coworkers on the weekend. At this party was a woman that I had met before at a previous work event, and she was friends with my coworkers who was hosting the party and also worked in our industry. About a couple of hours in, she comes over to me and my girlfriend, turns to her and says, "I'm sorry, but I can't sit here and watch this anymore. Your boyfriend cheated on you." Well, we were both shocked. My girlfriend doesn't say much and I protest my innocence. She goes on to say that I had hooked up with a different friend of hers at that work event that we met at, and apparently her friend told her this on their way home. Now, I did not know who she was talking about and didn't even recognize the name of the friend. It's possible I met her as well, but it would have been only for like a brief moment. My girlfriend takes my side of the argument, and we awkwardly leave a little bit after that, mostly because I was so angry. It's been 3 days ever since then, and things are weird. The vibes in our house are completely off. We aren't talking like we used to. We aren't texting each other throughout the day. We aren't laughing or telling stories. We've had conversations about it, but all I can do is deny cheating, which doesn't seem to make a difference, which is understandable. She says that she believes me, but I think there's a part of her that keeps saying, well, what if he's lying? And that thought's crept its way in and it won't leave. What can I do from here to prove that nothing happened and get my relationship back to where it was? It almost seems like it would be easier if I had cheated, so I could admit it and we could potentially move forward. My whole office seems to think that I'm a cheater too, which isn't nice. And lastly, can anything be done about this person I don't know making stuff up about me? What should I do? Okay, honestly, first and foremost, it's impossible to prove that you didn't cheat because, my God, the fact that this is even becoming like a rumor is proof that you work in a hostile work environment. And also, I think it might be time to go to Human Resources and explain just that. If I was in your shoes, I would be reporting the person who's spreading lies about you and be like, look, this is not okay. Because seriously, accusations like this are insidious and so absolutely uncalled for. So honestly, I really hope this gets worked out for you because this is something I can't imagine living through, especially when you know for a fact that you haven't done anything wrong. Am I the jerk for not inviting my stepmother to my wedding after enduring so many years of her mistreating me and the rest of my family? Because right now my dad is not taking this well, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents divorced when I was very young. My father cheated on my mother with his now wife. Ever since I was a child, she was never nice to me. She constantly made fun of me and my mother, who she never met, and she made awful comments about my mom's side of the family and deceased relatives. She was awful to me emotionally, made fun of my body and my clothing, called me and my mother names, and she also never allows my father and I to spend time alone together. Most recently, she banned me from their house after reading a text message that I sent to my dad stating that she does not respect my boundaries and and doesn't understand what the role of a stepmother should be. She also took down every photo of me in their home. My relationship with my dad has always been rocky. He was never there physically, emotionally, or financially for me. They have a son together who is 10 years younger than me. However, she kicked him out of the house several times since he was 13 and often gets in screaming matches with my dad in front of him. This happened again about a month ago, and my brother told me that he thought they were getting divorced. My dad said she wouldn't be at the wedding, and of course, about a week ago, they made up, but my brother is deeply hurt and is not speaking to her. And it was then that he told me not to invite her to the wedding. I told my dad this and that given the years of mistreatment, neither me nor my fiance want her there. He said he cannot comply with that, and if she isn't invited, then he's not coming along either, and it will prevent his side of the family from coming, which I didn't know is entirely accurate as no one in his family can stand her. I eventually compromised and said that she can come if she sits a few rows back, which I've seen at weddings of others with divorced parents. He is not happy with that either and will not give me a straight answer. In fact, he keeps dismissing me. I don't feel like she deserves to be there, and if that means my dad doesn't come, then so be it. I compromised my own wishes to even invite her in the first place. She booked a hotel room months ago for this wedding, and I was previously against my will, giving her an invite, but the recent events with my brother and interactions with my father make me want to stand my ground. She feels she had the right to be there because she is his wife. So honestly, am I the jerk for not extending an invite to her? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 times. This is your wedding, so you absolutely get to decide who is and isn't there. And based on the current drama, it seems like this is not someone you want at your wedding in the first place. So in my opinion, I think you are completely justified. My entitled sister and her partner scammed me and my parents out of $17,000 under the deliberate lie that they would be using that money for their wedding venue. But after I found out that they used that money to fly my sister's in-laws out to their wedding, I'm now incredibly hurt, and I'm deciding to back out of their wedding altogether. Here's what happened. So my younger sister, who we will call Katie, and her partner, who we will call Chris, are getting married in April in Dubai. She has always wanted an extravagant wedding and is going all out on this. So the wedding is happening over 4 days. There are 70 guests, but they want us, namely me, my husband, and my parents, to stay in the same hotel with them along with their bridesmaids and groomsmen. Now the hotel is pretty fancy, so with flights, it's going to cost us over $2,900 each. Chris's family are also staying in the hotel, which includes his parents, 2 brothers, and his nephew. Now they are well off. I don't know exactly how much they earn combined, but I know Katie is on $88,000 a year, and she is the lower earner. But about 6 months ago, Chris and Katie came to us and asked to borrow $17,000 more. They stressed it would be a loan paid over time and said the venue had increased the price. They also said that Dubai laws were different and all this other stuff. Basically, they either paid this money or they lost the lot. And well, we believe them. And I offered to loan $7,000 and my parents the other $10,000. Well, long story short, I have since found out through someone else that the $17,000 wasn't for the venue. It was for Chris's family to fly over. They saw how much it was going to be, didn't want to pay, and refused to go. I then decided to ask Katie and she confirmed. So my first question was if they were going to pay for his parents, and why not just pay for ours? I mean, I would never have expected them to pay for me, even if we couldn't afford it. I would have just wished them well and stayed at home. And her answer to this was to say, because they can afford it. She then got very defensive and said this was the fairest way she could think of doing it. It's hard enough to plan a wedding and all this other stuff. But when I asked if you genuinely thought this was the fairest way of doing it, why did you lie about what the $17,000 was used for and say it was for venue issues? Well, she couldn't answer the question. My parents are aware and they are very disappointed that they lied, but have said that they are still attending. But you know what? I have backed out. To me, it feels like my parents are being taken advantage of. And if they couldn't afford to pay for both our family and Chris's parents and his brothers and nephew, then they should not have just paid for the 4 parents or no one at all. And they especially shouldn't have lied about it. Katie and Chris keep calling and asking me to attend, saying I'm making them feel bad and ruining their day. But the whole thing just feels icky to me. I'm genuinely an open book, so be brutal with me. Am I the jerk in this situation? Should I just suck it up and go, or is this something I should stand my ground on? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, no, you are not the jerk for not going to this stupid wedding. Katie and Chris lied about what that money was going to be used for, and that in and of itself off the bat makes me never want to trust them ever again. Like they basically scammed you and your parents out of $17,000 under the assumption that they were using that money for the venue, when in reality they were lying and used it for something else. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so shady. And the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, come on, stop it, you're making us feel bad. You're ruining our special day. It's like, hold on, let's be clear here. You did not ruin anything about this day. They ruined it themselves the second they lied to you about what they were using that money for. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your sister and her husband are absolute dirtbags for the way they handled that money. And the fact that they scammed you and your parents out of $17,000, in my opinion, is unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling our brother-in-law that we needed some space, while also providing a list of troubling behavior that we've had issues with over the last year? Because right now we are so frustrated and we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my husband have been together for 13 years. He has a younger brother who has always liked solitude and enjoys doing anything that he wants whenever he wants. He's mentioned never wanting to have a partner or kids and thinks a life of compromise sounds awful. On principle, this is fine. March to the beat of your own drum, like that is totally okay. Unfortunately, we feel this has morphed into unkind behavior towards our child who is 6 years old. We like to spend as much time as we can with family and enjoy inviting our brother-in-law out to fun events with us, often at our own expense. Again, this is fine because we invite him to do this with us, and we have never asked my brother-in-law to pay for us to have a night out. However, over the past year, there have been several instances where my brother-in-law has caused issues with our child. At times, I've seen him antagonize and mock our child to the point of tears, and at one point, stated that his other nieces and nephews and even the cat are his favorites and not them. We've confronted him about his behavior when this happens, and always try to build our child's confidence back up after the fact. But it's been heartbreaking to hear our 6-year-old ask why my brother-in-law doesn't like him. Apart from how he treats our child, we also feel that he's been unkind to us, giving us the silent treatment for an entire night after taking a gift that he wanted in a Yankee swap. And for additional context, we invited him to a second Christmas with family and had additional gifts for him under the tree the next morning. He only started talking to us again once he found out he had other gifts. Other examples include yelling at us while playing cooperative video games because we didn't do something he wanted to in the game, and threatening to leave because we didn't want to play the game that he wanted. Most recently, he told us about a birthday plan he had that we weren't invited to, and this was a bit hurtful to hear. We told him it made us upset that we weren't invited, and he suggested making a different birthday plan so we could be included. After that, he ended up messaging us to let us know that he was going back to the original plan, and it would unfortunately be on a day I work, and it was going to be a child-free event, so neither of us could go. He extended the invite, but it still felt like a slap in the face after he knew that we were upset about being unincluded. From our perspective, extending an invitation to an event you know we cannot attend is not a real invitation. Following the birthday event, we wrote a message explaining how we felt, listing some of the examples above, and that we wanted some time to reassess our relationship. After a few days, he wrote back calling us immature, saying that we are mentally ill, that he didn't realize our relationship was transactional, and that he has ADHD, so he prefers not to be around kids. According to him, mentally stable people do not write messages like that, and we should unpack these things with a therapist rather than hashing out stuff that already happened. So truly, are we the jerks for trying to set some kind of boundary? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This really is some troubling behavior, especially him making your 6-year-old feel like garbage. In my opinion, there's very few reasons that should ever happen, and it doesn't sound like any of those are being listed, so like, what is his problem? I mean, I can understand a kid being annoying, but for you to be like, oh, I like literally everybody better than you, like that sucks, and that really is not a good precedent to set for a kid. And in my opinion, that alone is more than enough reason to be like, okay, we need to take a step back from this guy. Because obviously, this is delving into some toxic territory that in my opinion cannot be overlooked. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, because I honestly think that setting up some kind of distance will be better for everybody in the end. Am I the jerk for using the shared space way too much in the house that I rent from 2 other guys? Because right now I feel like I'm justified, but at the same time I can't help but feel that I might have done something wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in an apartment with 2 other guys, and we're all in our late 20s. We pay equal rent, and the shared spaces, namely the kitchen and the living room, are open to everybody to use. I use the common area a lot to study and work because my room is too cramped for a proper setup. I'm doing a master's degree at the moment, so I am home more than they are. The other day, one of my roommates pulled me aside and said he felt uncomfortable with me always being there. He admitted I have every right to use the space, but said it's gotten to the point where he and other roommates feel like they can't fully relax when I'm around. He suggested that I should move to my room more often and even asked if I had noticed him being annoyed about it, which I hadn't. I told him that I don't mind it at all if they use the kitchen while I'm working at the table or even sitting on the couches nearby. I'm not stopping them from cooking cooking or making noise, or using the space how they want. Then he made a comment about how he figured he could reason with me, which I felt a bit off, like he was expecting me to just agree with him. He also suggested I check with the guy who had my room last year, since he managed with a small desk. But my situation is different. I have more work to do from home, and I don't think that I should have to cram into a space that doesn't work just because he thinks it would make things more comfortable for him. We've had some disagreements before about things like shared chores and personal space, so I'm wondering if this is just another one of those things or if I'm actually being inconsiderate. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I kind of think you're being the jerk here because the way you're going about this is all wrong. Your roommate is coming to you in a rational way and saying, look, we feel like you're taking up way too much space and we think that it might be better for you to find a small desk for your room or something like that. And instead of just accommodating that and being like, oh, I'm so sorry, let me split my time a little bit more, it seems like you're almost like doubling down and being like, no, you guys can be in here just as much as I am. And to that end, I definitely think you're being the jerk, and I think you really need to be more considerate of the people you live with. Because at the moment, I really think, in my opinion, you're not thinking about your roommates nearly enough. Today, I messed up by almost fainting and embarrassing my friend at an Orange Theory gym, and I honestly feel so humiliated after that incident. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, I was invited by my good college friend to go to her local Orange Theory gym, as she had found out there was a deal for a special tryout class. I can't remember if it was free or if there was a small fee, but it would be our first time going to this gym, and we could decide whether we wanted a gym membership or not after the class. So I agreed, and she helped me sign up for the event. So I knew from past experience that I would need to eat something before going to work out at this gym to avoid any possibility of blacking out. For a bit of context, I have nearly fainted twice in my life. Once when I was in high school and had a habit of skipping lunch, which was usually okay since I would eat when I got home, but that fateful day I had fencing practice afterwards. The second time was a few years later, and the same college friend had invited me to attend a cycling class held on campus. I think I did eat, but I did not eat enough to sustain me after the intense exercise. I did persevere and finish the class before anyone noticed something might be wrong and went to eat with a friend afterwards. Both of these times, my vision was flickering between black and white while sweating profusely. Anyways, moving on to the event with Orange Theory, I woke up late, but I did make sure to eat something given my prior record. I met with my friend and we joined the class and started exercising. We used a bunch of the machines and did a lot of cardio, and the trainer was very good. My friend kept checking on me and was surprised that I was keeping up since I don't normally do much exercise. I had a strong determination and willpower that kept me going, but that was my downfall as I don't know my limits. About 30 to 40 minutes in, we moved on to doing some more chill exercises and I sat down to recover for a bit, and that was my mistake. The very moment I stopped to catch my breath while sitting on the floor, I started seeing everything in my vision with a blood red hue, and all of the voices sounded far away with some things moving in slow motion. I was super pale and sweating profusely. I heard my friends asking if I was okay, and I also heard another girl who was in the class saying that I should lay down, and someone pushed my shoulder so that I could lay down. I kept trying to tell people around me that I was fine, but words were not escaping my mouth. Someone then called the paramedics and they came to check on me. By the time they came around, I had recovered enough to say that I did not want an ambulance. My head was blaring with sirens from the potential cost of medical bills, and I think the trainer had given me some kind of electrolyte drink as well. The girl that had told me to lie down had also said that it looked like I was having a seizure, but I'm not sure about that. The class had also been interrupted, but the good thing is that it was near the end, and we had basically tried out all of the machines and done the majority of the exercises. I felt extremely bad for inconveniencing everybody, and my friend and I left to get some food at a restaurant afterwards. And obviously, we never went back because that was truly embarrassing. Oh man, I completely understand where you're coming from because something like that's happened to me once, where I was at a gym and I did not eat or drink properly, and I very nearly passed out in the locker room. It didn't get as far as what you went through, but man, that is not a fun feeling. It is nauseating, you feel awful afterwards, and you really just want to get out of there because you are so embarrassed. So yeah, I definitely know where you're coming from because this really can be incredibly embarrassing. My boyfriend's laziness and unwillingness to get a job is ruining our lives, and I'm now honestly considering breaking up with him because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 1 year, and I'm currently in university in my last semester. We're both currently unemployed, but my boyfriend graduated from trade school about 2 years ago and hasn't gone to work ever since then. We are both supported by our parents, which is embarrassing, and I see that I'm a bit of a hypocrite, but it's not just that he doesn't work. My boyfriend doesn't like to go outside. He spends most of the day playing video games, and for the past few months, he's gotten really into League of Legends, which for those who don't know, are games played with other people online, and a round lasts like 30 minutes and sometimes up to an hour at a time. He plays for probably 6 hours a day, if not more, especially right in the morning. He does also play the drums, maybe like 2 hours a day, which is a good thing, but I think he's also depressed. I've suggested going for walks, bringing light into the room, seeing someone, but none of which is something he's willing to do. He has applied for jobs on Indeed, but he's never gotten a call back. He also won't go out to give his CVs as I have suggested. About a month ago, I was able to convince him to do the forklift course that he had been talking about, and yesterday he had the online portion. Well, he realized that it's dangerous, and so now he's not going to pursue a job in that. Around that time, I convinced him to do that. Our friend said that he's going to open a store and hire my boyfriend, which I said to my boyfriend afterwards that realistically that's not going to happen. But of course he didn't listen to me and stopped applying for jobs because of it. Yesterday, he finally learned that his friend might not actually hire him, and he's now very upset. In any other circumstance, I would break up with him. However, we were best friends since before we started dating, and during that time, we made an agreement to get married so that he can get a green card to live with me in the States. For reference, we both are currently living in Canada. He's Brazilian and I'm American. I feel so guilty about all of this. If I don't stay with him, he will most likely have to go back, as he hasn't been working these past few years, that once his visa is over in 2026, he won't be able to renew it. But my life is slipping away. We share a basement studio apartment, and he hates having the lights on and the windows open for light. I used to go for walks, explore the city. I would go out and chat with people, but he is so jealous that I can't even really make friends. I was invited to a party yesterday by a friend in my class, but he didn't want me to go because he's worried other guys would flirt with me, so I didn't. He is so in love with me, so sweet and gentle, and I know that he will always be loyal. And I also love him, but I'm frankly losing attraction because of all of this. Our lease is not up until September, but it's in his name. However, I don't want to leave and force his family to pay for the whole place, as that isn't fair. So honestly, I feel like I'm at such a loss at this point, and I really don't know what to do. Man, it really sounds like your boyfriend needs to like get off his butt and get to work. Like, this guy clearly doesn't get it. If he doesn't get off his butt and start working, he literally is gonna lose his visa. Like, if that doesn't set his hair on fire to be like, okay, I've got to get to work, then I seriously just don't know what will. And I really think the original poster gets this. They understand that their boyfriend is going nowhere and their life is slipping away. So they either need to do something quick or else it's all gonna fall apart. And I don't blame you for feeling this way. So in my opinion, either your boyfriend gets to work or else this is not going to work, because you have every right to be in a secure relationship. Am I the jerk for telling my grandmother not to wear a white dress at my wedding? Because right now she is very upset and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently got engaged to my boyfriend of 2.5 years. For some context, my grandma raised me, but I've always been closer to my mom because my grandma is your stereotypical Christian conservative who, to put it bluntly, always thinks that she's right. She's gotten better over the years, but she still has a lot of growing to do in my opinion. Anyways, when I told my mom about the engagement, she was over the moon. After talking for a bit, she asked if I wanted to see some pictures from when I was a kid or before I was born. My mom is very much the sentimental type and loves to take and show pictures as needed. Now, I of course said yes. As we're flipping through the pictures, we came across one of my uncle's weddings. In it was my uncle and his now ex-wife, my dad, his brother, and my grandma. Now, I thought it was sweet until I noticed that my grandma was wearing a long white dress with a beaded top, almost like a wedding dress. Now, this struck me as odd, just because, well, wouldn't you feel weird with someone else wearing white at your wedding? A few days later, I talked to my fiance about this, and he told me that if it was a true concern, I should talk to her about it. I was already planning on doing so, but I needed that final push. So when I went to her house, I told her about the engagement itself. She's never liked my boyfriend only because he smokes, so she wasn't too thrilled about it, but she was accepting. I told her I had seen a picture of her at my uncle's wedding wearing a white dress, and how I wouldn't feel comfortable with her doing the same at mine. Well, I guess I was spot on, because she got super defensive, saying that I was selfish and inconsiderate, and that it wasn't a big deal. Personally, I wanted to be the only one wearing white because I'm paying hundreds if not thousands of dollars for a wedding dress. I would like to just stand out, even if I am the bride. It just feels kind of disrespectful. And here's where I think I might be the jerk. I got annoyed with her for calling me names and berating me about my relationship. And for reference, she was also bashing my fiance in the process. It might have been selfish for me to say, but I said something along the lines of, "It is my day, and if you can't do this one thing, then maybe you shouldn't come at all." Now, both of us were very heated in this moment, but I think I went a little too far looking back. She then told me to get out, and we haven't spoken ever since then. My fiance reassured me and said that if it was important to me, then it should have been important to her. This happened a little bit over a week ago, and I just need some outside opinions. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, no, this is so weird in my opinion. It should be a given that you don't wear white at someone else's wedding, especially not a white dress. Like, are you you kidding me right now? That is so weird and honestly just so uncalled for. So in my opinion, I don't think you're being unreasonable at all. This is your wedding and you have every right to be the only person in a white dress. And the fact that your grandma can't understand that is honestly so stupid. Because in my opinion, you are definitely not being selfish or inconsiderate. Am I the jerk for getting angry with my friends for backing out of a trip after I paid for their tickets? Because right now I'm still very pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been planning a trip with my close friend group to visit New Orleans during carnival season. There is 5 of us in total, but for right now, I'm just gonna focus on my friends who I will name Ray and Sam. This trip has been in the works for over a year at this point, including hotel reservations, planning on where to go, etc. Obviously, this also included flight tickets, of which I paid for myself and my boyfriend, who is among the 5 of us going. Things started to turn south a bit a few weeks ago when Sam let us know that he didn't have the immediate funds to cover his flight ticket, and so likely would not be able to go. So collectively as a group, we offered to split the cost in order for Sam to go, with the condition that he paid us all back when he could afford it, which was fine until 3 nights ago when Ray also let me know that she hadn't booked her ticket yet. I will preface this by saying that Ray had a very valid reason for not booking, which is due to some family issues that I do not want to share on her behalf. Nevertheless, I was a bit upset that this wasn't communicated sooner. Well, trying to be a good friend, I offered to front the cost of her ticket with the stipulation that she paid me back within the next few weeks. I wasn't sweating the cost of the ticket, but it was nevertheless a very expensive ticket. Now, I thought everything was settled, to the point where I was coordinating with them on when to pick up for arrival at the airport. It is at this time that Ray informs me that she is thinking about backing out of the trip, all due to being overwhelmed with work and school-related responsibilities. This is also a sentiment which was also shared by Sam, who proceeded to question whether or not he might pull out as well. At this point, I simply couldn't take it and ended up blowing up on the both of them. And quite honestly, I don't know if I feel bad for doing so. While I completely understand that things happen and come up, I can't help but feel that my own finances and the stress of coordinating the trip on their behalf is being taken advantage of. Moreover, because the flights are so close to departure, I am unable to get a refund. So I'm still out of the money I've put down for this trip until they pay me back for it. So seriously, does anyone think I'm the jerk for being angry with them over this? My boyfriend thinks I shouldn't be so hard on them and that the trip will still be fine without them. But honestly, the stress and cost of trying to go to bat for both of them, only to be canceled on last minute, is really getting to me. What should I do? Okay, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be super pissed off. Your friends literally backed out at the last second for this stupid trip that you paid for. Like at that point, you basically threw money down the drain and it's like, wait a second, how is this fair to me? You can't get a refund and you're basically being left on the hook. So yeah, you have every right to be pissed off. I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would be livid, because if anyone's gonna take advantage of me like that, especially people that I consider a friend, then for me, all sense of trust and like respect is just thrown out the window, because the way they're treating you is completely unfair. My entitled brother throws an absolute temper tantrum after he didn't get a job interview that my sister did end up getting, claiming that she's only gonna get hired because she's a woman and that the job she was applying for is clearly sexist. And I was honestly so blown away by what he said that I decided to speak up and put him in his place. Here's what happened. To start things out, this happened a couple of years ago, but no matter what, I cannot get over how entitled my brother acted. For a bit of context, my brother and older sister both applied to one of the only jobs hiring near where we lived. The job was for a cashier position, which my sister had several years experience in customer service, while my brother only worked 1 year at a factory in his life, and he quit that job because he didn't get a raise, claiming it was unfair when staff who worked there for 5 years got raises. But anyways, one day we were out shopping when my sister got a call from the job they both applied for, and it's here that we find out they wanted her in for an interview. When hearing that, my brother basically threw a fit. He told my sister that it's unfair that you got an interview and I didn't, when I put in an application a week before you did, and even called to check up on it. I reminded him that our sister has experience while he doesn't, but then he just repeated, well, I put in an application first. I should be first, not her. Then I told him that that's not how interviews work. They wait for the ones with experience so they don't have to do much training. He then got even more upset and claimed that the store is sexist and she's only getting hired because she's a woman, which honestly made me so irritated. He was acting like a child, and our dad was actually trying to back him up, telling my sister to put in a good word for your brother. Well, my sister told our dad that there's no way she can do that, because even if she gets hired, it would be wrong to immediately convince them to hire our brother. While this conversation was going on, my brother kept going on and on about how the owner is male, so he must be sexist and only want females, since currently the only staff there are women. So in order to get in, he needed needed our sister to tell them to hire him too during her interview. At this point, I noticed my sister getting upset throughout everything, and at first she was so excited to get the interview and was hoping everyone would be happy for her, but instead they acted like she was wrong for getting the interview instead of our brother. I told my dad and brother that that was enough, and that she got the interview because she has several years of experience under her belt, while our brother had none, and that it had nothing to do with her gender, and that no, she was not going to mention our brother during her interview or after getting hired, because if they didn't contact him, clearly he didn't cut it and they just need to stop. After that, everyone went silent, but to this day, I'm honestly still annoyed by the way they treated my sister. Oh my gosh, talk about sexist. If there's anybody who's being sexist right now, it's your brother and your dad for defending him. Like seriously, what is going on right now? She didn't get that job just because she's a woman. She got that job because she's more qualified. Like, I don't know about you, but I would rather hire someone with 5 years of experience instead of somebody with no experience and only one job on their resume that they worked for 1 year. Like seriously, what's going on right now? This is so weird. Why would you make that kind of claim just because you didn't get what you want? That is not a good look, and especially towards a family member. So yeah, I think your brother was being a complete moron, and the way he acted honestly was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I've decided to go no contact with my narcissistic parents and my brother who's considered the golden child, all because they have taken advantage of me for far too long. But now I'm worried that things might fall apart as I'm constantly on edge with what might happen in the future, because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have finally reached my breaking point with my family, and I'm planning to go no contact very soon. I just need to get this off my chest and see if anyone has ever been in a similar situation. I grew up in a family where my younger brother was always the golden child, while I was the scapegoat, the one expected to sacrifice everything, take on responsibilities beyond my years, and never complain. My parents have been financially dependent on me for years, and despite giving and giving, it's still never enough. My brother, who turns 18 this year, still has another year of high school left. I recently told my family that once he finishes, I can no longer support them. My spouse and I are planning for a second child via IVF, which is financially and emotionally draining, and I simply cannot keep providing for two families. I'm already exhausted raising my first child, and I refuse to set myself on fire to keep them warm any longer. Well, of course, my father exploded when I told this to him. He outright said he expects me to support them until their passing, and my brother until he finishes university. Mind you, we never had this agreement. This has just been an unspoken expectation placed on me because as the scapegoat, my needs and boundaries don't matter. My brother, on the other hand, gets to sit back and be coddled with zero expectations placed on him. Earlier this year, I became eligible for US citizenship, and I had suggested a solution. I could bring all three of them to the US while my brother was still under 21, making it easier for them to immigrate legally. If they moved, they could help with childcare and meal prep, which would have benefited everyone. But no, my father, who has been brainwashed by fake news, thinks that California is a nightmare and refuses to let my brother move. And because my father always gets the final say, my brother's future has basically been decided for him. He's not particularly bright or hardworking, and I genuinely don't see him thriving in a white-collar job. But of course, in my father's delusional world, trade school is beneath him. To add to the dysfunction, my father is in his late 70s. He has been retired since his 50s and had an almost mini stroke a few years ago. He's physically unable to work, yet he still clings to this outdated patriarchal control, expecting me to provide for him indefinitely. My mother, who is still in her 50s, is essentially his captive, forced into the role of his caretaker and my brother's enabler rather than being able to help me with childcare as she had promised years ago. Now, what's the real kicker to all of this? If my brother doesn't move now, a sibling visa after 21 takes 15 plus years to get. I have no interest in sponsoring him by then because I have my own family to take care of. But it's not like my parents think that far ahead. They just assume I'll always be there no matter how much I protest. At this point, I'm mentally and emotionally done. The moment my brother finishes his last high school exam, I'm cutting contact. It's sad because I know my father is going to regret his decision, and my brother, being the golden child, is completely unprepared for the real world. But that is no longer my problem. Has anyone dealt with narcissistic parents who favored a golden child while using you as their personal ATM and caretaker? How did you handle going no contact? I feel guilty, but also like a huge weight is about to be lifted. What should I do? Honestly, I completely understand why you want to cut contact with these people. They literally have been taking advantage of you for years. And I thought this was something that might have happened like in your late teenage years or something like that, but I'm stuck stunned to find out that no, you literally have a family of your own, and they're still acting like you're supposed to take care of everybody. And it's like, wait a second, this is not fair at all. How are you somehow responsible for their life and all of their finances? And the fact that they don't see this as a golden opportunity to get a visa while also working towards US citizenship, like that is crazy to me, and I just can't believe they're being this stubborn. So hopefully this all goes well in some kind of way, because the way your family's treating you, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. My parents are in financial trouble again, and they're asking me for more money even though I've given them so much already. And I'm honestly so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we had a comfortable lifestyle growing up. We were solidly upper middle class, and I never thought I would be in this position. For reference, my dad recently went all in on a business that ended up being a scam. The scam is not his fault, but what I can't wrap my head around is why he invested all of their liquid savings into this. He is barely able to stay afloat right now, so he's asking me and my brother to help the family get by. Not only is he nearing retirement age, but he also has one more kid to raise. He remarried later in life, and I have one half-sister who is still in middle school. She has learning disabilities, so she goes to a specialized school. There is a cheaper school for her learning disabilities in another city, but my dad can't move his business, so the family would live apart if they did that. My stepmother has been a stay-at-home mom for all of their marriage, and she's now looking for a job, but it's been tough. They're also planning to sell their nice house and downsize. This will finally give them some cash, but they're still strapped until the house sells. Now, he already asked me for money a few years ago when we were in the depths of COVID and his business was suffering. I recently learned from my stepmother that while that was true in the beginning, he also kept spending money on poorly executed business ideas that failed. I gave him close to $25,000 aggregated over those years. Now, at that time, I gave without any kind of hesitation. He was my dad, an astute businessman that I looked up to all of my life, and I had no doubt that he was good for it, but I still haven't seen a cent of that money back, and also feel like I was scammed by my own father. My brother and I split $15,000 recently so that my sister could finish out the rest of her school year. At this point, I know I should assume I will never see any of that money back. Because of that, I don't feel comfortable giving away any more. My brother is trying to convince me to split tuition fees with him again for the next school year so the family can stay together instead of moving her to another school in another city. But I said no. I feel so torn, pressured, selfish, and resentful. Honestly, just so many emotions going through me. No one is pressuring me, but I'm from a culture where family is very important, and I feel a sense of obligation even though I don't want to. I want to help my family, especially my sister who is innocent in all of this. At the same time, I don't want to keep enabling my dad in his poor business decisions. My brother wasn't involved with the first request for money, so I feel like he doesn't know what I went through over the last few years. I make six figures and I have no debt, and I've been saving and investing since my first job, so I do have the means and my family knows it, which makes this even harder. But I'm not a millionaire, and I would start to feel financially insecure if I kept giving more. This has also affected me psychologically. Even though I've been financially independent from my dad ever since college, it was always nice to have a financial safety net in the background. We've never had to worry about money, and now the safety net is gone, and it has completely messed up my psyche a lot. Most people I grew up with have had their parents help them with their down payments or even their weddings, but I now know that will not be in my future. I worry about my sister's future, and I know that's a very privileged thing to say. People had to go through the Great Recession, and most people in this country will never find financial security, but it's something that I'm still personally trying to come around to. I don't know how to navigate this, and I worry how my relationship with my dad and my brother will change going forward, and with my sister once she's older. What should I do? Honestly, it seems like this is a big ask from people that you thought you could rely on. And sure, you could keep giving them money, but it's like, okay, this honestly has got to stop. Because truly, where's the breaking point with all of this? So honestly, I don't blame you for not wanting to help out with this financial issue again, because it seems like these people always have something going on, and eventually they need to stand up on their own 2 feet and figure it out themselves. My old best friend reached out to me, and I am now unsure of how to respond, especially when I consider that she stabbed me in the back at my previous job. Here's what happened. Okay, so long story short, this girl and I had been friends since we were maybe 8 or 9 years old. There was a brief time in high school where we weren't really friends, just because we had different groups, and she liked to go out to party, whereas I didn't. But then we ended up working at the same job, and we got really close again. So close to the point where I was in her wedding party. About 7 months ago, we were talking about how our jobs just made us miserable, and I was a manager of a business and she was an assistant manager. Our boss drove us up a wall. We couldn't stand being in the same room as her because she was constantly belittling us. She was critiquing our personal lives, as well as making snide comments comments towards us. If we were working on something near her, she would quite literally stand over our shoulder and breathe down our neck. I mean, it was very frustrating. Our boss made comments about our weight. She would do something nice and then throw it back in our face, and she'd come in sick and then we'd all get sick and would then claim that it wasn't her and then be annoyed that we couldn't work. So my old friend was telling me how after December she was gone. She couldn't stand working here anymore and she was cutting back her hours after the busy season before leaving. She had another job lined up and everything. And you know what? I didn't blame her at all. Towards the end of it, the both of us were just playing dumb games on our computer or just straight up doing personal stuff. For me, because I went back to school, I would occasionally do schoolwork, which my boss gave me the okay for, by the way, since I was still working full time. Not to mention that it was hard to find time outside of work for all of my schoolwork. Now, I will admit, we shouldn't have been slacking off, and that was in for both of us. We would still do our job, but when it was finished and there wasn't much else to do, we would talk or just relax. Well, one day I called out of work, and my old friend was so mad about this because it was starting to get a lot busier. I had explained to her what happened and that I was throwing up from anxiety and didn't sleep at all, and I was literally going on 30 hours of no sleep, but she couldn't care less. I told her if it got so busy where our other coworkers couldn't handle it, to please let me know, but she never did. I also wasn't in the day after either due to a wedding, and I'd taken that day off months prior. Well, suddenly I get to work and my old friend is ignoring me, barely looking me in the eye, and I tried to talk to her, but she just would not budge. Then I got really sick with strep throat. I let everyone at work know and they were pissed off. They didn't believe me even though I had proof from the doctor and antibiotics to show that I had strep, and even though I was dying, my boss called me saying how busy it was and that she couldn't do it without me. And for the next 3 days, I went into work during the busiest time to help out. And honestly, I didn't even get a single thank you even though I felt so crappy. My old friend at this point was straight up ignoring me or giving me one-word answers to everything. Unfortunately, the strep wasn't getting better and I started to get a huge pain in my ribs that I had to go to like 3 different doctors for, meaning that I had to take more time off of work. Now, I realized the timing was the worst since it was our busiest time, but I explained everything to my boss and again, had proof from my doctor about everything. But then my boss sits me down and tells me how if I didn't want to cut back my hours and step down, then basically she would be letting me go. According to her, I called out of work to really spend time with my boyfriend, who is my now ex, and everything I told my old friend in confidence about what I didn't like about the job, she had told my boss, which are things that only she knew about. So now my old friend basically has my job. It's several months later and she is still there, and she's now best friends with my boss and all of the coworkers that she used to complain about. And my old coworker who quit confirmed that everything my boss had told me and talked to me about was my old friend whispering in her ear. Well, this friend finally messaged me back in November and she said the following: "Hey, I just wanted to text and see if you were okay. I know we haven't talked and I couldn't tell if you were mad at me or something, but I don't want you to think that I stabbed you in the back or took your job or anything like that. We'll probably be working together next week, or at least sometime soon since another person quit, and I just don't want it to be awkward or awful if you are actually mad at me." And then she messaged me this today. She said, "I feel like I know your answer based on the last time I reached out to you, but just in case if you ever want to talk things out or whatever, I'm obviously open to it. But you know what? I have not responded to either message. So here's my question. Is it even worth clearing the air? I feel very betrayed. Last I talked to her, she said, I understand if you hate me, which to me is saying that she knew what she did was wrong. I will admit towards the end, with how unhappy I wasn't the most happy person in the world. I did my job and tried to mind my own business, and that's it. But she felt exactly the same as me, and we agreed on everything about our job. So seriously, should I even bother reaching out to this friend? Because at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I would not waste my time. There's no way on earth I would ever trust someone like this, especially after they stabbed me in the back like that. Because let's not forget, this best friend literally stabbed you in the back. That's exactly what she did, and she's even admitting it. So for you to go back to her would just not make any sense to me. So no, I don't think you should reach out, and honestly, I think you're better off without her in your life, because she clearly was never your friend to begin with. Am I the jerk for leaving my chronically late friend to find his own way home after he is consistently never on time to anything we plan? Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old male, and I have a friend from church who's 34 who had someone total his car last August. I have been helping him with getting around as much as I can ever since then, and never once asked for gas money or anything like that. He has a problem with time management and is always late for just about everything, but me, on the other hand, is someone who is never late. There have been many instances where, due to his poor time management, he has made me late to many many functions and gatherings. I truly despise people who are always late. A few times here and there is fine, but late for everything is just unacceptable in my book. Nevertheless, I look past it because he is a friend who is in need. He also rents a car every now and again to make trips out of town. I usually take him to pick up the rental car and take him back home when he returns it. Last night, he wanted me to take him home after he returned the rental, and I agreed. He tells me to meet him at this mall near my place, which we would then convoy to the rental dealer and return the car, and it would take him home afterwards. He tells me to meet him at the mall at 10 o'clock p.m., but because the mall is close by and I know he's always late, I stay home until I get a call from him at 11 o'clock p.m., which is literally 1 hour later, telling me that he is at the mall. So I drive to the mall, I'm parked where he said to meet him, and I still don't see him. So I call his phone twice and I text him 3 times, and I still get no response. I then wait 5 minutes with no response still, and then I decide to go home. As soon as I get in my house, I get a call from him asking where I'm at and that he left his phone in the rental and he went to go buy something in the mall. I then tell him that I just went home. He doesn't argue or anything like that, and he just says thanks for coming by and trying to help him out. And you know what? I did not go back to help him. I left him to find his own way home. I've given him rides countless times before, but this time I was just fed up of him never respecting my time and then not answering my calls when I've left my home at 11 o'clock p.m. to help him out. I am not turning back on this decision. I'm standing on that, but I do feel kind of bad for just ditching him like that. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your friend is being super rude by always being late, especially being an hour late to your pickup time? Like, that is unacceptable, and I don't blame you for being annoyed. So hopefully in the future he finds a new way to get a ride or figure out his car situation, because I definitely think he's taking advantage of your kindness. My mom complains the entire time we're on vacation, making my life a living nightmare and thus proving that I will never go on vacation with her ever again. Here's what happens. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 22-year-old female and I came on vacation with my parents. And it's important to note that we've done everything my mom wants the way she wants it done. Literally everything has got to go her way or she'll throw a tantrum. And you know what? I was okay with that until today. We had a long bus ride at about 5 hours to get to the hotel that we were staying at, and by the end of it, we were all tired. But when my mom gets tired, she begins with this awful childlike behavior. First thing in the morning, she complains because we use backpacks instead of a suitcase, which by the way, that was her idea. Then we had to take a boat to get to the island, and on the way to the boat, she was carrying a bag and started whining that it was too heavy, even though there was only a towel and a bottle of water inside of it. I offered to carry the bag for her, but still she just ignored me and kept complaining. Then she swore that a guy took her seat while we were on the waiting room for the boat, even though there's no designated seats, and complained for like an hour about how she didn't want to ride the same boat as him. We finally arrived to the island at 5 o'clock p.m. and the sun had finally gone down and we hadn't had anything to eat. We get to the hotel and sit down and finally eat something, and my mom doesn't even read the menu and just decides that she doesn't like it and instead just wants to go to a place that's like 20 minutes away. My dad and I are so tired and we convince her to stay, and thank God she accepted. But obviously she whined the entire time that we ate. The meat wasn't made the way that she likes it. The potatoes are cut too big. The juice is too sweet, etc. Then she decides that actually she doesn't like the hotel at all and looks for pictures of it on Google, and now she's angry because our room doesn't have the same type of floor as in the pictures. She wants to complain to the manager and demand another room. Well, by then I just lost it and I told her, aren't you tired of complaining all day? We're just staying in this hotel for one night. Suck it up. Well, she didn't even answer me when I said that, and she said to my father, I do not know what's up with her. Are you seeing this? Now, my dad never says no to my mom, so he told her to do whatever she wanted. I'm honestly so tired of this. We are all tired, but that doesn't mean we can act like total idiots. So honestly, I'm never going on a long trip with them ever again. Maybe you think I'm too grown to be coming on trips with my parents, but I'm an only child, and they like spending time with me, and I like it too. Also, it's easier to split expenses when there's 3 of us, and usually I just ignore my mom's behavior, but this time it was way too much. Oh man, I would go absolutely insane if I had to deal with something like that. In my opinion, when you go on vacation, especially for a vacation that probably costs a lot of money, that means you gotta sit down and suck it up no matter what happens. Just roll with the punches even if things go wrong. Because seriously, this is so annoying. No one wants to go on vacation just to listen to your mom complain literally the entire time on the way to the hotel. So yeah, hopefully you never deal with that again because your mom sounds incredibly obnoxious. My entitled mom despises the fact that I have a service dog, claiming that I don't need it, and even going as far as treating me like garbage the second I get it. And I'm honestly still so confused by this and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I caused my mother, who I lived with at the time, to have a full 3-year-old style tantrum over me getting a service dog. For a little bit of background, I've got a pretty serious visual disability that impacts my mobility. I have no balance, I will walk off stairs and curbs, and basically I used to accidentally hurt myself a lot. For a while, I had been looking at getting a service dog to help me with these issues, as stuff like canes and walkers just didn't do anything. I also secretly hoped that it would help my serious burnout being caused by world events. So after about a year of rejections, my best friend randomly shows up to my house one day, showing me pictures of border collie puppies, and there was this one dog that I just fell in love with. I can't really explain it, but we connected basically instantly, even though I had not met this dog yet. So I tell my buddy that if the puppy was still available, I would take her. I wasn't one to make spontaneous choices like that, but something just clicked. Well, my mother was less than thrilled even at the idea. We were a dog household growing up, but my mother is, well, crazy to put it nicely, and if she gets it in her head that something is bad, she will double down until there's nothing left. So my buddy calls me and tells me the pup is still looking for a home. I then reach out to the service dog organization and I explain the situation, and they explain that it may be possible to train the puppy, but they would need to vet them, check their temperament, and all that jazz. So I passed the numbers along, the trainers met the pup's mom's owner, and I was given a temporary green light. And at this point, I was on cloud 9. Not only would I be getting my own service dog after waiting ages, but for the first time in nearly a year, I actually felt happy enough to get up before 6:00 p.m. So I spent the next couple of days getting everything prepared for when my dog would come home. I got the vet stuff set up, training crate, the food, the toys, the whole 9 yards. And it was here that my mother began getting more and more hostile towards me. It started off pretty petty, like my dryer door randomly getting opened, food that I made for myself getting tossed out, that sort of stuff. But it grew to be more crazy, like I had to replace the dog's leash 3 times as it kept getting cut. But eventually this all came to a head when we went up for the day in the mountains, where we were gonna decorate graves, go eat, and everything else. And I was just a little bit too happy, like a bit over the top with being helpful and making sure everyone had what they needed. And this led to snarky remarks off and on a few days prior to when I was given my dog's pickup date, and I was just living in a different world. My sister who organized this trip and her kiddos were aware, but my mother was not. Anyways, tensions got raised as the day went on, and everyone was excited for the day trip and the new dog addition to the family. Well, at this point, my mother snapped at me. Around the time that we went to eat, I was just getting dunked on left and right about how I didn't need a dog and how my condition that I've had since I was literally an infant wasn't that bad. And for context, I can't see more than a few inches past my face, so I don't know what she's talking about. My sister, in a moment of brilliance, had had enough and told my mom to shove it because I was approved for this assistance dog and was going to pick her up in 2 weeks' time. When she heard this, you could have heard a pin drop. This 50-plus-year-old woman then starts sobbing, screaming, and kicking like a toddler, saying that she didn't want a dog and that it wasn't fair that this was being forced on her, and how she didn't like the dog's breed and wanted a Yorkie and all of this other BS. We got asked to leave the restaurant, and my mom got so mad that she threw her phone down, causing it to shatter, which then led her to the parking lot of this establishment where she was on her knees falling, and I just honestly can't even describe it. The whole kicker to this whole thing, prior to this dog coming into my life, is that my mother had been supportive of the idea, so I'm seriously not even sure where it all came from. She just really did not like my service dog. Even 2 years later, after I had the dog and they were fully trained, it actually led me to moving out, but that's an entirely different story. And now, 5 years past this incident, she's now obsessed with my dog and acts like none of that ever happened. Now, I know it's a bit tame compared to what normally gets posted here, but it's still important to note because this entire situation is incredibly annoying. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. They encourage you to do something and then they turn around and be like, wait, but it's not the way that I want it done. How dare you actually do the thing that I encourage you to do in the first place? It's like, lady, what are you complaining about? You literally said to your daughter, hey, you should do this and this would be good for you. And it's like, wouldn't you be happy that your kid has a dog that can help them see properly? Like the original poster can't see anything, what, a few inches past their face? And your mom was to sit there and be like, oh, well, that's just absolute BS. You can't do that. That's not fair. So truly, I'm glad you moved out of there because that entire situation is crazy to me. And I just can't stand the fact that she would actually act like that and then try to turn around and pretend as if nothing happened. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A group of monstrously toxic shoppers mock a little girl for having a disfigured face. So I decided to step in by giving this little girl a $50 gift card, while also telling her that she's pretty and that she deserves deserves the best things in life. Because this scenario honestly pissed me off, as that little girl definitely did not deserve to be treated that way. Here's what happened. Some years ago, I was shopping at a Target, and I noticed a little girl and her mom receiving all sorts of unwarranted negative attention from other shoppers. People were staring, pointing, gasping, and even snickering and talking loudly about the girl between themselves. The little girl had to have been around 4 years old and suffered from some sort of congenital disfigurements to her face and head. Like half of it was kind of dented in. It was bad and kind of shocking, but my god, she's a little girl. Be better, people. It was obvious that for the girl and her mom, this kind of rude attention was nothing new. The little girl wouldn't look at anyone, but kept her head down and just looked at the merchandise within reach or occasionally at her mom. The mom had no problem defiantly looking anyone in the eye, shoulders being squared up. You can tell she had no problem standing up to a jerk like these shoppers. And you could tell too that they didn't have much money. So anyways, I took in all this while I was shopping, never directly staring, mostly watching it out of the corner of my eye. And I felt such a strong need to counter this BS and do what I can to try and help this little girl feel like every other 4-year-old living her best life, even if it was just for a moment. So I ditched my cart, I ran to the front of the store, and stood in a painfully slow line to buy a $50 gift card, all the while hoping they didn't leave before I located them again. With the gift card in hand, I lucked out and found them in the little girl's clothing section, and they were still suffering from other people's rudeness as they tried to shop. I approached the mom, and when I said, "Excuse me," she looked like she was gonna clock me, expecting me to say something rude or mean. But I tried to show nothing but kindness in my eyes, and I just smiled at her. I then said, "I've had this gift card bouncing around in my purse, and I've always forgotten to use it. Would it be okay if I gave it to your daughter?" Well, this mom was shocked to receive any kindness for once. She then smiled and said, "Sure." Now smiling, I knelt next to the little girl, and while giving her the card, I said, "Pretty girls deserve to buy pretty things." And I said this in my best loving mom voice. She shyly took the card from my hand, and then she turned and raced to her mom excitedly to show her. As I turned to walk away, the mom calls out, "Thank you," and I just waved my hand and I said, "You ladies go have fun." And I then smiled and finished up my shopping, giving every rude jerk in the store the stink eye on my way out. They say the best revenge is a life well lived, and if only for a little while, I'm glad I was able to help that sweet little girl live her best life. Wow, I am blown away that people could be this toxic and awful. Like seriously, what kind of monsters would mock a child as she walks around, all because she looks different than anybody else? Like that is some serious levels of crazy that I've just never heard of before, especially in today's modern age. Like just because people look different doesn't mean they're deaf, so you can guarantee that the mom and the kid hear exactly what's going on around them. So honestly, the fact that you stepped up and gave that little girl some kind of hope was probably the best thing you ever could have done, because this treatment she received otherwise was so unbelievably wrong, as she literally did not deserve that even for a second. Am I the jerk for hating on a supposedly wholesome family that I work for, as I truly see them for the hypocrites that they actually are? Because right now I feel like these people are driving me crazy, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work as a waitress at a family-owned cafe, and there's a situation that's been bothering me for a while. There are two people in particular, a woman who is the daughter of the owner and my former manager from years ago, and her husband, who is just kind of the worst person on planet Earth. Almost every single day since I started, the husband calls in the morning to order food to go before he heads out to work. Sometimes he'll come in during the afternoon for a second to go order too, and he doesn't tip and doesn't pay for the food. He gets it for free, while the rest of us waitstaff have to pay half for our meals, and he's never worked there. One day after I made a large to-go order that took a lot of work, he laughed and said that he didn't have the money to tip. After finding $3, he joked and said, "A 300% tip on a $0 meal seems a bit too shabby." His family then laughed, including his sister who works there. It felt really insulting, especially since he didn't pay for the food in the first place, and his to-go order was $40. Recently, he and his wife have been coming in regularly for lunch. For the past 2 weeks, they've been coming in every shift I've worked. They sit down at a table, which in our small cafe with only 6 tables, takes up space that could be used by other well-paying customers, and then they expected us to wait on them. My ex-manager used to handle their orders herself when they came in, but now they expect service like regular customers. They sometimes get up to grab their own things too, which makes it harder for me to know how to handle them. Should I wait on them like regular customers, or should they serve themselves? They've been tipping $5 regardless of the service or the total of their meal, which feels really frustrating considering the effort other waitresses put into serving them. And again, they don't pay anything. Now, they are very religious, which again isn't inherently bad, but the way they preach about being good Christians and good people feels so gross to me, because it seriously does not matter match their actions. They treat waitstaff poorly, leaving dirty tables, taking up the small number of tables we have for literally such a long time, and taking away potential customers. And yet they act like they're kind, genuine people who can't see how their actions affect us. The wife was a waitress, so she should know how hard it is to make money and how important it is to tip properly. One incident that bothered me was when the wife took a picture of me at my other job through her car window and texted it to a group chat with her cousin and sister-in-law who also works at the cafe. She then captioned it and said, "New tattoo?" ? And for context, I have a lot of tattoos and I'm working with a tattoo shop on the side. This felt incredibly invasive and judgmental, especially since I don't really know her. It made me uncomfortable and I couldn't help but feel like she was making fun of me for something personal. When the cousin or sister-in-law are around, they act surprised when I ask if they can take their table. It's like they don't understand how their family coming in messes with our ability to make money. I feel like I'm being made out to be the bad guy because I just don't like them. It is difficult to explain to others because they see them as this nice family, but my experience with their actions has been anything but that. I've been struggling with whether my feelings are justified. On the surface, they seem like a nice family, but in reality, they've made me feel disrespected and judged. I don't want to feel like I'm being unreasonable, but I also know I don't like to be treated this way. The sister-in-law that I work with mentioned recently that the husband thinks I don't like him, which yeah, he's right. Some employees who aren't related to the family agree with me that they're annoying and judgmental, while the family members think that I'm being cold or that I'm the reason for the awkwardness. And you know what? It's probably true because I'm not good at pretending to like someone. They came in today again and I did my usual thing, being cordial if they spoke to me but not initiating conversation. Watching them with their baby made me feel guilty, like maybe I'm just hating on a nice family for no reason, but technically they've never been outwardly mean. So am I justified in not liking them? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, as someone who has worked in this exact situation, I do not blame you for feeling this way. These people claim to be these loving Christian people, but then they turn around and don't pay you for your work. And yes, you serving them is work. The fact that they're not tipping you is just like, oh my gosh, can you leave already? I could be making money off of somebody else. Like if they really want to do that, then maybe it's time for a pay increase or something to compensate that. Because yeah, you're right. You've only got 6 tables at this restaurant and they took up one of them. And that's literally preventing people from sitting down and being served. And I love the fact that you've caught on entirely that other people don't see what you're seeing. Because you know the truth about these people. You literally work with them every single day. You see how hypocritical and two-faced these people truly are, and that they're probably just using their religion as some kind of masquerade to hide how they really act. So my God, from someone who has dealt with this exact situation, you are completely justified in saying that these people suck and they are not genuine. And I can also say from personal experience that once I left that job, I felt so much better about myself. I felt like I could breathe again and that I could actually do whatever I wanted. And also, just in case you're wondering, yes, they're absolutely judging you. They either try to make you their project when it comes to like, I don't know, making you join their religion, where they brought you in only because you're covered in tattoos, or they secretly like resent you because you have tattoos, and so they talk crap about you constantly. And this time might be the only time you've actually found out about them treating you poorly. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. These people sound like the worst people on planet Earth to ever work for, and I'm honestly surprised that you haven't found another job. A toxic van driver keeps blocking the pavement on a road where you are not supposed to park on it, making the entire road incredibly dangerous for pedestrians. So I decided to get some revenge by not only getting him in trouble with his boss, but also getting him in trouble with the police. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, in the United Kingdom, it's currently not illegal to park on pavements other than a few locations, and where I'm based is one of the few places you get fined. For a few weeks, there have been vans blocking the pavement on a school-run route, with the vans on the only pavement available and blocking the view. Cars often fly down and around the corner, as it is a route route to sneak in front of a load of traffic if you know about it. So it is pretty dangerous if you're a pedestrian if the walkway is blocked. It started with maybe just one van, but you could still squeeze past, which is not good if you have any mobility issues or aids or any kind of like push chairs. Being a school route, obviously there's pushchair traffic and young kids on bikes and scooters. Quickly though, it was starting to get to 2 vans with at least one blocking the pavement. I would take photos to try and report it, but 2 kids and a job with different walk homes for various reasons meant that I just kept forgetting. This isn't going to be going away anytime soon, as they have parked a trailer on the grass verge for tools and other things. But it was here that my final straw was reached. 2 vans were parked completely across the pavement, with another one parked completely across the pavement over the bumpy lines that visually impaired people use. It's right in front of the trailer with a company name on the side of it for once. I had to take my young kids into the middle of the road to get safely to the next side, and just as we crossed, a car came flying around the corner and down the road. And my god, if we had just been 10 seconds later, we could have gotten hurt. I immediately take a photo as normal, and just as I do, a guy comes out of the trailer and works out that I am taking a photo and starts shouting at me. I'm guessing he heard me mention the parking and slowly understood that I'm taking a photo and this was not a good thing for him. He then said to me, "The cars can get by," but I responded by saying, "It's not safe for anyone else though." But he responded by saying, "But the cars can. You can't take a photo of me. I'll call the police." But I said, "Well, don't worry. I'm contacting the authorities about your dangerous parking." And then I walked off taking my kids to school. The guy had a work top on, and it turns out in the edge of the photo, the van had a logo and website on the side, and thankfully my photo caught all of this and how bad his parking job truly was. I then contacted the highways team with all of the photos, local counselor, and his company. Now this guy's company is a big company, so I immediately got one of those marketing automatic emails stating how awesome the company was. I replied by saying, "Hey marketing, sorry but I'm about to mess up your unsubscribe stats thing, and also heads up, this really did happen, and I know marketing teams as I am from one myself, and we can make things happen fast when things go sideways. This all went down this morning with one of your employees at said location, and I've sent it to the following people and will do what I need to do to ensure that the route goes back to being safe again after this morning. If you can work your magic, here's a photo of the guy and the van." Well, less than 10 minutes later, I get a message going, "We're on it and thanks for the heads up. Leave this with us because trust me, it won't happen again." Well, the police get back to me a week later, as it was a non-urgent issue, and said that they were following up on it as well. Well, as a result, they've not been parking on the pavement at all, and all the kids are getting safely to the 2 primary schools and 2 secondary schools, as this is a key route for it. And this guy really thought he could shout and intimidate me, but trust me, I knew exactly how I was going to handle this from the very beginning. Wow, imagine being so entitled that you freak out on someone all because they're trying to do the right thing. This guy knew he was in the wrong for the way he was parking, but instead of being a rational human being and fixing his mistake, he decides to take it out on this person and be like, "Oh, you can't take a picture of me. I'm going to call the police and make this a bigger deal." And it's like, okay friend, we can fight fire with fire. This is no problem for me. Like if you really want to dance and make this into a bigger issue than it needs to be, then by all means, let's do this. So truly, I love the way you handled this because this guy absolutely had it coming. His behavior was atrocious and you did not deserve to be treated this way. And honestly, I really hope he gets in trouble because this behavior is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for offering my friend to do more chores in exchange for cheaper rent, as I was trying to take into account her struggling financial needs? Because after I made this offer, she freaked out on me and said that I was trying to mistreat her. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and my current roommate is moving out of our 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in New Jersey, and my friend, who's also 24, was interested in moving in. The rent is $2,000, but she can only afford about $800 max, including utilities. Now, we've been friends for 10 years, and I thought it would be great to live together, especially since she's been wanting to move out of her parents' house. After crunching the numbers, I figured I could adjust my budget to cover more of the rent. I suggested that she pay $700 and I pay $1,300 in exchange for her taking on 3 chores that I dislike: taking out the garbage, cleaning the stove, and cleaning the bathroom. I would still do other chores, but just not those specific ones. Well, she immediately got upset, saying she didn't want someone her age bossing her around. She said the reason she wanted to move out of her parents' house was so that she could get away from being controlled. She also worried that I'd use the rent difference against her in the future, like controlling how we decorate or saying that I pay more so my opinion matters more, especially during disagreements. I then explained that wasn't my intention and that I thought it was a fair compromise considering she couldn't pay half the rent. She then told me that I sound like a man who would mistreat her. Now for context, I'm a masculine lesbian and she's made comments in the past comparing me to a man, so this comment felt especially intentional. I honestly expected her to turn the offer down because of the rent difference, but I didn't anticipate this reaction. I explained that I thought the compromise was fair and that if she wasn't comfortable with compromise, maybe she wasn't ready to live with others. She then agreed and then said she always knew living together was a bad idea and that she wants to live alone. And mind you, by the way, she reached out to me first about moving in. When I tried to address her comments about comparing me to a man who would mistreat her and how that felt hurtful after a 10-year friendship, she dismissed it and brushed it off as a joke. She said that clearly we wouldn't get along living together because of our personality differences. So was my compromise unreasonable or was she overreacting? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, this is so unbelievably toxic from your friend, it's not even funny. Seriously, you're giving her a break when it comes to rent and all she has to do is pay what, $700 and just take the trash out, clean the bathroom and clean the stove? Like my god, if I had that kind of deal, especially in New Jersey, then I would take that in a heartbeat and be like, oh, you got it, no problem here. Because the rent in that state is already astronomical, especially if they have like this place next to New York City. Like, in my opinion, this is a really fair deal. You took in her financial constraints and said, okay, let's see if we can make this work. Because, you know, you guys have been friends for 10 years. So you probably thought in your heart of hearts that yes, this can work and we can figure it out. But man, your friend is an idiot for acting this way. And for her to make that comment about you being a man that would mistreat her, like that also is incredibly toxic, and I'm so sorry that she said that. Like seriously, that was uncalled for and you did not deserve that. So no, overall, you are definitely not the jerk. You did the right thing by even trying to help her out in the first place, since she's the one that reached out to you. And the fact that she reacted this way before she moved in my opinion, is a blessing in disguise. Can you imagine dealing with that after she moved in? My God, that would have been awful. Because this friend sounds like a complete moron, and this would not be someone that you would ever want to live with. My fiance isn't being invited to my best friend's wedding, all because his future bride-to-be doesn't want people thinking that my fiance is prettier than her. And now my entire friendship I feel is being torn apart, as I'm now stuck between a rock and a hard place of whether I should show up to his wedding alone, or if I should stand by my fiance and not go as well. Because right now I'm so confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my lifelong best friend is getting married later this year, and when he first got engaged, he asked me to be one of the groomsmen. I obviously accepted and have been excited for the wedding and to see my best friend finally get married. Now his fiance and my fiance have always gotten along really well. The four of us hang out pretty frequently, always have a great time, and there has never been any problems. My fiance has always considered her a friend and has been extremely happy for them and excited about their wedding. His fiance has even asked my fiance for her thoughts and suggestions on certain decor for the wedding, as well as the venues, colors, and things like that. The official wedding invitations were sent out recently, and when it arrived at our house, I noticed it was only addressed to me and also didn't say anything about a +1. Now, I was kind of surprised by this, because I had been assuming that my fiance would be invited, given the fact that I've been with my fiance for 4 years now, which is longer than he has been with his fiance. He has been my best friend since preschool. The four of us hang out all the time, and some of my family members received invitations to the wedding. But before jumping to conclusions, I thought maybe none of the groomsmen or other friends of the bride and groom are allowed to have a +1 due to cost or things like that, since weddings are obviously expensive. The other groomsmen are all friends of mine and his, so I called them to see if their significant others were also not invited. Well, it turns out every single one of them received an invitation that included their significant other, and the bridesmaids all get to bring their significant others as well. So at that point, I called him to let him know that I got my invitation, but that my fiance was not included on the invitation. And I asked if there was some kind of error or if they had forgotten to include her on it. Well, that's when he informed that his fiance doesn't want my fiance coming to the wedding because she doesn't want all the guests thinking that my fiance is prettier than her. Now, I will say my fiance is insanely gorgeous. If I had a penny every time someone asked me how I managed to get her, I would be a billionaire. On the other hand, his fiance isn't the most conventionally attractive woman. I feel bad saying that, and it's something I have never said out loud to anyone, but for context to the situation, I wanted to include that here. I told him that I know it's not my wedding, so I don't get to pick the guest list, but I think it's a bit unfair and ridiculous that my fiance, who they are friends with, is the only significant other of the whole entire wedding party that doesn't get to come to the wedding because his fiance is worried that people will think she is prettier than her. I told him that his fiance is the bride, so everyone is going to be looking at her and no one's going to be focusing on my fiance, who by the way isn't even a bridesmaid, so she's not even going to be standing up in front of everyone or anything like that. He said that he agrees with me and that he has already tried multiple times to explain this to his fiance, but that she won't budge and is insistent that everyone will think my fiance is prettier. So I ended up telling him that I cannot be a groomsman or attend the wedding then, because in my eyes, it's not fair to my fiance for me to attend or be in a wedding where she is the only significant other not invited due to the bride's own insecurities. Well, he's upset with me now and thinks I'm overreacting, but I just don't think this is fair. My fiance told me not to worry about her and that I should be part of my best friend's big day. But even with my fiance being completely fine with me going, I honestly just don't want to be around the bride. What should I do? Okay, for the love of your future marriage, do not go to that wedding. Seriously, inform him that you will not be going if your fiance is not also there. Because in my opinion, just because your fiance is saying go doesn't mean that that's permission to go. She's probably just trying to be nice and she's trying to be like, oh, it's okay, just go ahead and enjoy yourself. When in reality, she's probably mind-boggled at how stupid this lady is. Because trust me, if this lady wants to act like that, then you could easily turn around and be like, okay, well, if my fiance's not coming to your wedding, then you and your wife are not coming to mine. Because in my opinion, your top priority right now is to stand by your fiance and not allow this crap to fly for a second, even if she says she's okay with this, because fundamentally, this is so wrong. So yeah, your best friend is a jerk for not sticking up for you and your fiance, and his fiance is even worse for making this assumption, because quite literally, your fiance didn't do anything wrong, and she does not deserve this treatment in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled manager fires me, but still expects me to work the last 2 shifts of the week. But everything goes south fast for this manager, as they are very quickly fired for making me work shifts that I no longer was employed for. And it honestly feels so good that I got back at this guy in the way that I did. Here's what happened. Okay, so I worked at this after-school care place. It was always held at the back of the elementary school in my area, and I would change sites pretty regularly. A lot of high schoolers worked there, including me at the time, and I quite frankly loved that job. And sure, while I did absolutely love this job, I hated my manager. He was a higher up within the company that would stop by and oversee to make sure everything was going smoothly. Now, he was more important than a manager, but that's what I'm going to refer to him as from now on. He was horrible at his job, and everyone I worked with agreed. For example, there was plenty of times someone should have been fired, and he was too chicken to do it. Like a coworker who had shown up drunk to work, one that targeted me and multiple women that we worked with, who was reported by multiple of us, and one that would literally disappear for hours during her work hours. The real problem, however, came very shortly before he fired me, all because I missed my shift. Now, I had just left school, and as I was getting into the car, I accidentally closed the door on my fingers, like the middle of my fingers. And it was so hard, I broke 2 of them and had to rush to the hospital. On the way, I shot him a quick text that my friend sent who drove me, because I was crying way too hard to call him up. Now, in the contract I signed when I got the job, a no-call, no-show resulted in being fired. That is, unless it was a medical emergency. So after I came to work with one of those splints on 2 of my broken fingers, he came to the site I was at with a write-up that I had to sign. Now, I asked him why, because I told him before my shift had even started, but he looked at me and said, "I called you saying you still had to come in and you didn't answer." But I had no service in the ER, so I never got it. I told him there's no way he expected me to come in with 2 broken fingers, and he told me that it wasn't his problem. So he fired me, but told me I was still expected to show up for my 2 final shifts of the week, which he had done 20 minutes before first shift, and I honestly was so in shock. Well, on my second to last day, a different higher up stood by that I had never met just to check in. She came over and introduced herself, holding out her hand, and when I told her my name, she retracted her hand and walked away without another word. After my shift, a coworker called me and let me know that my manager had called every single coworker of mine and told them that if I showed up again to call the police because I wasn't supposed to be there for my last 2 shifts. Now, I was in shock. He had told me to go to them. There was even an HR person sitting in on our meeting that could confirm this, so I went to the Human Resources Department. I then had a meeting with the head of the department and the woman who was there when I got fired. I then told them about the coworker who had harassed me, the write-up that didn't make sense, and the HR person confirming that he had told me to show up for my shifts. And this is where the revenge finally takes in place because he got fired because of me. They went around to my other coworkers who confirmed my story and they fired him. I learned this a few months after the whole debacle when talking to a school friend of mine. Her mom works in the school district and confirmed to me that he had been fired because of me. To this day, whenever I remember it, I smile. And yes, I do sort of feel bad, but when I tell you my story doesn't even include the half of what this manager did and didn't do, you would understand why I feel so happy. Although this may not be deemed as petty, I think it is because I have an attitude of if I'm going down, he's coming down with me. And that is honestly the only reason that I went to Human Resources. Oh yeah, this story is wonderful because I can't stand people who act like this. Managers who literally are just trying to find reasons to drag you down when they themselves don't even do their job right. Seriously, it seems like any manager is either completely incompetent or they're awesome and they're great at their job. And sure, there's like a little bit of gray area, but it seems like those 2 categories stand out the most. The people who are idiots somehow work their way up the food chain, and the awesome managers just never stick around because they're never recognized. So yeah, this guy sucked and I'm so glad that you got him fired. But I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would have never worked those last 2 shifts because that guy is out of his mind if he expects me to work even after he said I was fired, since that situation is never gonna fly in my book. An entitled Karen and her husband demands that I hand over my collectible Shadow the Hedgehog figure right as we're standing in line at a Build-A-Bear workshop to have him stuffed. And even though I said no to this Karen and her husband, I was still creeped out by the way they treated me, with me quickly leaving the store as soon as we paid. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 22-year-old autistic female, and I've had a lifelong special interest in Sonic the Hedgehog. It's been a deep obsession my entire life. So, of course, the new movie was a huge deal for me. Adding on to this, one of my favorite characters from the franchise is Shadow, because of course he is. For Christmas this year, I received the gift set of his Build-A-Bear, Voice Box, Chaos Emerald, and the actual plush. He was given to me unstuffed because we wanted to stuff him in store for the sake of the old times. For reference, I was a big Build-A-Bear kid apparently, and we had a family friend who was a manager there and would give me bears all the time. Now, many of you may not know this, but this particular Build-A-Bear is in high demand right now. He was essentially sold out everywhere once the movie had released, and people are still desperately awaiting a restock. So I was incredibly lucky to get Shadow, especially the gift set, which I'm deeply thankful for. So with that backstory in mind, my family was going out to Texas to visit family right after Christmas. So we took the unstuffed Shadow along and planned to get him stuffed at the local mall's Build-A-Bear store. My younger cousin in high school also tagged along to buy some Bluey Build-A-Bear plushies for her friend as a late Christmas gift. We get there and notice a long line. This Build-A-Bear only had the stuffing and naming machines, so there wasn't any of the other typical Build-A-Bear process things. And you know what? I didn't mind that much. I was just happy to get Shadow stuffed. Since we know it will be a wait, my cousin grabs the two that she planned to get, and we hurried into the stuffing line, deciding to look at the accessories afterwards. It's noteworthy to mention that this store had nothing Sonic related, and it especially didn't have Shadow himself. I noticed a couple of kids staring but brushed it off, and once I overheard a mother a ways behind me in line telling her kid that they didn't have Sonic, I honestly didn't think much of it. At this moment, I was sort of holding the stuffingless Shadow in my arms when a random lady walks out of line up to me and grabs his ear tightly. She says to me, "Ma'am, where did you get this?" And me, feeling slightly startled, I said, "Oh, he was online." Now, I wasn't sure what exactly I was expecting, but it sure wasn't for this woman to, in complete silence, step back and glare me down. No words were said, but I've worked in a fast food establishment that had a reputation of being slow, and I had never received a glare harder than this one. I'm still half convinced that this woman was trying to blow up my head with her mind or something like that. I sort of gave her a confused look in response, because I had expected at least a begrudging thanks, though I suppose not everyone was raised on manners. After a solid 30 seconds of her glaring, this woman walked back to her daughter and husband in line, and the entire time, she continued to glare daggers at me, not taking her eyes off of me. Now, naturally, I was getting kind of weirded out. This woman was probably in her 40s or something like that, and she was glaring down a girl in her 20s over a Build-A-Bear. I glanced over to my cousin, and I saw that she was returning this dirty look in some kind of attempt to get this lady to stop staring at us. The line moves forward, and it's almost our turn to get the plushie stuffed. Right as we're waiting for our turn, this woman's husband walks right up to us. And yes, she was still glaring us down at this point. He says to me, "Hey, is Shadow for sale? I'll give you $100 right now." I looked at him and I said, no, I'm sorry. He then said to me, "Are you sure? I mean, are you really sure?" And I looked at him again and I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry." The husband then stepped back with a confused expression and returned to his wife and daughter, who, by the way, the wife was now glaring even worse. We got Shadow, Bluey, and Bingo all stuffed, got those little adoption certificate things, and my cousin ended up buying Shadow a wedding dress, as I had told her about the videos of people putting him in dresses, and I thought it was funny. Once we went to pay, we took one last look just to see that this woman was still glaring daggers at us. So we went ahead and paid, and we got out of there. Now, the story is relatively anticlimactic, but I think considering the circumstances, it is still a funny one. It's definitely the first Karen or entitled parent I've encountered out in the wild, which feels way different than encountering them at work. I've told a few friends this story, and they pointed out that she was probably planning to snatch him had I not mentioned that he was already paid for, which honestly is really annoying to think about. Luckily, Shadow is safe at home and well cared for. I'm glad I have him, and I really hope they do a restock of him soon, just so other fans can get him just like I did. Okay, this is one of those situations where I can only imagine being in that scenario, because holy crap, that Karen was 100% gonna rob you. Like, she was staring you down as if you had kicked her dog or something like that. And the fact that the husband came up and was like, "Oh, I'll buy it from you for $100. Are you sure you don't want to do that?" It's like, dude, go away. I don't know you, and I'm not gonna give this over to you. So good for you for standing your ground and not giving these people any chances to steal from you. Because I guarantee you, the second you put down Shadow and look away, that stupid family would have taken him and tried to claim that it was always theirs. And that, in my opinion, would have been devastating to deal with. Am I the jerk for kicking my best friend out of my wedding after she literally threw shade at me and my husband at our reception? Because right now, my friends are split down the middle, and at this point, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong or not. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I just got married last weekend, and what was supposed to be the best day of my life turned into a complete disaster because of my best friend, who we will call Emily. Emily and I have been inseparable since college. She was my maid of honor, and I trusted her completely. But looking back, there were so many red flags leading up to my wedding that I just ignored. For starters, she kept making weird comments about how weddings are just a big performance. Secondly, she was oddly obsessed with my fiance, always joking about how he was the one that got away, which is like, okay, they went on one date years ago before we even met, but that was it. And third, she kept making passive-aggressive remarks about how much I was spending on the wedding, saying that it was excessive. Now, I brushed all of this off because, well, we've been friends for a decade, but then the wedding happened. Everything was perfect until the reception. Right after dinner, the DJ opened up the floor for speeches. My dad spoke, Jake's brother spoke, and then Emily took the mic, which, by the way, was completely unplanned. At first, it seemed like a sweet speech, but then she started talking about all the versions of love and how sometimes the best love stories don't end in marriage. Then she looked straight at Jake and said, "Some people end up with the person they're meant to be with, others just settle." And I swear the entire room went silent. Jake squeezed my hand under the table, but I could feel his whole body tense. I could hear whispers and people were staring at me. And then she laughed like it was some kind of joke. She actually had the audacity to toast to us after that. But at that point, I saw red. As soon as she stepped down, I pulled her aside and I asked her what in the world that was about. But she played dumb and said, "It was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." But I was not having it. I told her she had completely disrespected me on the most important day of my life and that I wanted her gone. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, but I stood my ground and I had one of the groomsmen escort her out. Well, now our mutual friends are split. Some say I was justified because she was clearly being shady, but others think I was too harsh and should have just let it go. So truly, am I the jerk for kicking my best friend out of my wedding after she literally threw shade at me and my husband? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. That was so over the line. I honestly don't care who it is. It could have been my mom or dad up there making that speech. The second someone disrespects me and my future spouse like that, all bets are off and they have gotta go. And by the way, that is not something you joke about. You don't stand up there and say, "Oh yeah, you're settling for this lady." And by the way, as a reminder, this is literally at their reception. Like, what's going on right now? That is so inappropriate. Never mind the fact that she's been making weird comments the entire time and clearly has some secret crush on Jake or something like that. But the fact that she vocalized that and basically projected everything that she was thinking out onto the audience and the bride and groom, like, that is so crazy and honestly not fair. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking her out. And I really hope this is someone you no longer talk to because this is not a good friend. I mean, just look at the way she tried to brush it off as a joke. And it's like, no, idiot, it's not a joke. You literally meant that. You said it at my wedding and tried to be like, "Oh, I'm just kidding." But there's truth to that. You really mean that. So no, you're not the jerk, and honestly, this lady is not a good friend, and this is definitely not someone that you should ever have to deal with. My mom said that I was selfish for changing my name after I came out as trans to my entire family. And right now, she's causing me a lot of grief, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I came out to my mother when I was 22 years old, and she did not take it well. This specific scenario happened years ago, but I've been advised before to take stories of my mother to this page, as others have felt confident that she fits the entitled parent template, and I'm finally acting on that advice. For context, my mother has had the usual negative responses that parents can generally have. She's told me that I turned my back on everything I was raised on, that I was just confused, and that Satan was lying to me. And for reference, she is heavily religious. And also, I have nothing wrong with religion, but she is very toxically religious. She even went as far as to tell me that my straight, not safe for work books that I was reading and my Catholic friend brainwashed me into making me trans. And that's just the tamer responses that she had. Also, apparently, after I came out, she has these little index cards with Bible verses and nonsense explanations from her as to how the Bible verse was explaining that I was not actually trans or that I was wrong that I was trans. In this instance, she also blamed my Catholic friend on top of some of my other friends for brainwashing me into believing that I'm trans. Now, just to be clear, my friends never once made any impression on me to be trans. We have never even so much as discussed the idea that I was trans until I brought it up to him. Well, it got to the point where I was comfortable introducing my chosen name to my siblings and such. Of course, I told my mother as well, even though I know that she will never use it. However, it was simply not enough for my mother to not be pressured or expected to use my chosen name. She was also upset that my brother and other people around our apartment complex have chosen to respect my new name. Well, a fight broke out because my little brother has become very much like a trans social justice warrior towards my mother in defense of me. His famous quote being to scream at my mother loud enough for me to hear from the bedroom that that my pronouns are he, him. This particular incident, however, my brother seemed very upset that my mother was not using my chosen name, as my siblings had all generally started working at switching over how they address me. Even my older brother's making an effort, despite his own unique views that he had at the very least previously used to have. Well, my mother had this whiteboard where she would write messages on it for us right before she leaves for work, generally addressing our chores for the day and so forth. As you can expect, my mother did not use my chosen name on this whiteboard, and that was something I choked down and dealt with, as I knew picking the fight with my mother was not worth it. Well, my little brother is a very empathetic individual and knows when something is bothering me. So, beyond my knowledge, he apparently continuously kept changing my name on the board from my dead name to my chosen name, and I was low-key proud of him for being such an ally, but also I figured it was going to come with a lecture on my end. And you know what? I was right. My mom comes into my room later that night to insist that I stop going by my chosen name and to continue using my dead name with everyone. She told me that it was incredibly selfish and inconsiderate of me to change the name that she and my father worked so hard to come up with, and that it took them months to come up with the perfect name for me. Now, my father doesn't seem to care or have any attachment to my name other than the fact that my dead name was named after him and was meant to be the female version of his own name, and even he's agreed to call me Junior as a compromise and still fully accepts that my chosen name is my new name. I have agreed fully to that, and I think the nickname is adorable. My mom also said that I was throwing away the gift that she and my father gave me. Now, also a fun fact story, my dead name was not actually going to be my dead name, but rather another name. The only reason I wasn't named this other name was because my aunt insisted that my cousin, who was going to be due barely a month or two after me, would be named that same name. Well, it turns out neither of us were named under this name, so I have reasons to believe that no, my mother does not actually care about my dead name itself either, and rather was only caring about me changing my name because I was changing it as a trans man. And while this is just the tip of the iceberg with this woman, I'm honestly at a place where I seriously don't know what to do. Man, I'm really sorry that your mom's treating you that way, because this situation and whole scenario is not easy to go through. I have friends and family who are trans and have come out in some kind of form, and I can tell you right now that that process is not easy. People can walk away from you, they can abandon you, and in some cases, they can straight up just deny that you're a member of the family. And that is so messed up. I can't imagine doing that to someone that you love. So truly, I hope this all works out for you, because the way your mom's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly unkind. I found out that my husband has been having an affair with my mother behind my back, because after I caught them on the desk at her house, spending some quality time together, if you know what I mean, I'm now completely devastated, as they're now telling me that they've loved each other for over a year and that they think that I should get used to the idea sooner than later, because right now my heart is broken and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female and I've been married to my 33-year-old husband for a year and 3 months now. We got together when I was 18 years old and he was 30 while I was a senior in high school. To a lot of people, our relationship is taboo. However, I've always been very mature for my age and it's always felt normal to the both of us. My mother, who's 40 years old, has always had a soft spot for him, which I appreciated. When she first met him, she told me that I was lucky to have an amazing person in my life. Throughout our relationship, my mom and him got along fine, which I've always thought may just be from their somewhat closeness in age. However, during our wedding is when I started noticing weird behavior from my mom. On my wedding day, she told me she wished she was the one in the gown today, referring to me in my wedding dress. I asked her what she meant, and she just started laughing, saying, "Oh, I've had too much to drink." She also suggested that her and my husband have a dance together during my wedding. Well, I immediately laughed because I thought it was a joke. However, now, considering the circumstances, it was clearly not a joke. Further down the line, she would start asking me how he was when we were spending more quality time together, if you know what I mean. Well, I told her that I wasn't comfortable talking to her about that, and that's when she said that my aunt was curious. She also started asking my husband sketchy questions like that of all kinds, and these were genuinely uncomfortable questions that made me grossed out. My suspicions specifically grew throughout the last 3 months. My husband told me that my mom had asked him to renovate her kitchen, as he does work in construction, and stated that he would be over there after work Monday through Wednesday. Well, when I offered to join him, he said that it wasn't necessary and that it would be boring for me. When I asked my mom if I should join as well, she said I was being a nagging wife asking to come over. However, when he started to visit my mom, I noticed some really big changes in our relationship, because when he would come home from work or from my mom's house, he would never be interested in being close to me. My suspicions grew further when I visited my mom's place and the kitchen looked the same as before. And when I confronted both of them, they said they were still prepping for the renovation. But in this moment, I knew something was wrong, as the worst was only yet to be discovered. Well, I had an urge to know, so I left work early and decided to go to my mom's place and see what was happening. sleeping. When I arrived, I wanted to see what they were up to naturally and didn't want them to be alarmed that I was there. Luckily, my mom's place has a lot of windows, and you can see nearly every room in the house if you just wander around. When I got to the study's window, that's when I saw my husband and my mother sleeping together, if you know what I mean, right on the desk. I screamed and cried. When they saw me, my mom looked down in complete disbelief, while my husband ran out of the room. I wasn't there long, but ran to my car and drove off hyperventilating. When I got home, I just started to pack some of my clothing and essentials, and I wanted to leave. When I drove off, my phone started blowing up from my husband, my mother, and my aunt, as I'm assuming that she knew as well. I drove to an empty car park, and I sat there for over 4 hours just crying and listening to music. I decided to return to my husband and I's home, as the tears I let go turned into complete anger and distrust. I wanted to confront him. When I arrived home, he was not there, and there was also no sign that he had ever been at our place. I decided that I needed some sleep and thought that maybe he had just stayed in a motel for the night to give me space. When I woke up the next day, I was going to call him. However, I thought to myself that I wasn't ready to speak to him. So I called my aunt, and she told me that he had stayed over at my mother's house to be there for her. Well, when I heard that, my mouth dropped, and I couldn't even say a single word. So much so that my aunt had to keep asking if I was there. I told her if she could set up a meeting with myself, my husband, and my mother, and she said she'll pick me up and take me to my mom's house to talk. When my aunt picked me up, she said that my mother told her about the affair, and she told her to stop. Well, my mother lied to her, saying that she had, and yesterday, straight after I caught them, she said my mother told her that she had been still seeing him, and that I had found out. I told my aunt I was disappointed she didn't tell me, and that she's lost my trust, and she seemed to understand that and complied. When we got to their house, my husband had his arm around my mother, while she had her head rested on his shoulder. Keep in mind, I caught them a day ago. My mother started crying as soon as she saw me and started hugging my husband, and that in itself aggravated me. To keep this from not going any longer, they told me that they wanted to be together, and they hope one day I'll accept them. I literally couldn't even feel anything, so I just started laughing in shock. Even my aunt told my mom that she was being ridiculous. They claimed that they've been in love for a year now, and they started sleeping with each other 4 months after my husband and I got married. The craziest claim was that my mother said she sees herself starting a family with him. After they told me everything, I sat in silence for a few minutes, and my mom pleaded that I say something, but I simply couldn't. I then asked my aunt in that moment to take me home, and she got her keys and got me out of there immediately. As soon as I got in the car, she hugged me and I started bawling. She said everything was going to be okay, and that she was there for me no matter what. She offered that I stay with her, but I just wanted to be alone. It's been a week since all of that happened, and I've been at home alone just crying and drinking. I even had some really dark thoughts that honestly terrified me, to the point that I was going to check myself to the hospital. The worst part is that a part of me wishes I never saw them and lived completely oblivious to their affair. I don't have any friends or anyone in my life. The only person I had was my husband, and now that's gone. My mother and I have always had problems in the past, as she blamed my father taking his life on me, and even faked a note from him saying that it was my fault when I was 12. In a way, I think this is her way at getting back at me for my dad, as she truly believes that I was the reason he decided to pass away, all because I was an angry teenager. My husband sees my mother as forbidden fruit, which is something that I believe men crave, which is why majority of the time they're the ones that cheat. I am now alone, and to be honest, I have no clear direction for what's next for me. My husband and I agreed I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, which is something I wanted as well. I don't have any interest in college and have never considered what kind of profession would interest me, and I've always wanted to be a mom and a loving wife, and expected that to become my reality. I'm also not smart at all, and have no idea what to do from here. What should I do? Okay, first of all, I am so sorry this happened to you, because you do not deserve this. Like, your mom is absolutely out of her mind if she thinks this is okay. She literally ruined your life, and has already been trying to ruin your life from the beginning, it sounds like. First and foremost, you need to understand that your husband's a creep for trying to date you when you're 18, because honestly, you are incredibly young. You're not mature for your age, and that is a massive age gap. Like, this is not the 1800s. That kind of gap is not okay. And I really don't care who you are. Like, you should not be dating that young. So on that end, it kind of seemed like this relationship was gonna fail from the beginning. But also, you're still incredibly young. Like, you're only 21 years old, so you have a lot of life in front of you. Just because your husband and your mom showed their true colors, and they now have completely betrayed your trust, doesn't mean your life is over and you can't do anything else. Like, there's still so much you can do with your life. Like, honestly, this is only the beginning. But I know if I was in your shoes, I would take this as a blessing in disguise. Because for me, if I found out that my spouse was cheating on me with my mother, I would be like, oh, you're not only gone out of my life, but I'm gonna cut all of you off and move on, and live a better life than you could have ever imagined, which is exactly what you still can do. This whole scenario is so sketchy. Honestly, you got married way too young, and you got stuck stuck with someone who clearly did not have your best intentions in mind. So hopefully you're able to get out of this situation, because honestly, this does not sound healthy in the slightest. Because what they've done to you, in my opinion, is completely tragic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My partner expects me to lay in bed for hours because he doesn't like waking up alone. And despite the fact that I wake up early and he sleeps until late in the morning, I'm honestly incredibly frustrated because I don't want to do this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner expects me to lay in bed for hours because he doesn't like waking up alone. Currently, we're both not working, so we have mornings and days together. And since I've been on leave, he started saying he doesn't like waking up alone and wondering where I am when he wakes up. Our apartment is pretty small, so I could really only be in the kitchen, the living room, or the bathroom, honestly. It's not like I just leave and I'm unreachable for the day or something like that. I am an early riser naturally, and he is not, and is notoriously hard to wake up. I don't think it's my responsibility to rub his back so he can wake up nicely, but he doesn't think it's too much to ask. He is also adamant about me being there when he wakes up. Calling me back into bed is not good enough because the bad feelings of waking up alone has already happened. So in his mind, it's too late then. I have told him several times that this expectation is unrealistic. And if I wake up at 6:30 and he sleeps till 11:30, that is 4 hours of my day completely wasted. Also, I want coffee, I want breakfast, and it's like, are you kidding me? Is this not normal? This morning, I woke up at 7:30, laid in bed until 8:15, then got up to feed the cat and dog and started cleaning up around the house for a bit. At 9:30, he starts making noise, and I go in and lay with him, and he is once again upset that he woke up alone. Then he asked me what my plan for the day was, and I said, well, clean the house and go get some groceries to cook something. He then got upset at this and said I just plan every day, and he can't make any plans because I'm selfish, and I don't wait for him so we can plan together. I told him that my plan was just tasks, and he can add whatever he wants us to do. I tried to get him to tell me what an ideal day in his mind was, and what a perfect girlfriend would do, but he refused to give me any examples, and then just kept saying that I don't care about him. Basically, it led to a big argument, and I told him that we were just not compatible, and I will never meet his expectations. So seriously, am I overreacting, or is this insanely unreasonable? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Oh yeah, this is completely unreasonable. This is so weird. Your partner needs to grow up and realize that, hey, you can live your own life and do stuff without him. Obviously, the thought of him being like, oh yeah, I want to wake up next to my girl, like this is really something that I enjoy, like that in and of itself is kind of sweet and obviously like very wholesome. But he's taking it to such an extreme that he's like, no, you need to stay in bed while I sleep in. And honestly, I'm right there with you. There's no reason you should have to do that. Like that's some like obnoxiously controlling behavior, and I just would hate that if I was in your shoes. So no, you're definitely not overreacting. Your boyfriend's being weird, and honestly, I don't blame you for getting frustrated, because what he's asking is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for deserting my girlfriend on a trip that I gifted to her after she went out of her way to constantly complain the entire time? Because right now, I am still upset, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my long-distance girlfriend happened to be here while a band she loves played 4 hours away. So I surprised her with a trip to see them. I got train tickets and a hotel, ensuring that we stayed in the best part of town, and it was easy to get around. And I also told her a month ahead of time so that we could have time to plan. I told her our schedule for the arrival day and the day of the show, what times and places that things were happening. The night before, she brings up the plan and I repeat all of it to her, but immediately she starts challenging it. She says to me, that's not a plan, what trains are we taking? Now, I knew we had many options and I would just check Google on arrival, but nevertheless, she proceeds to look up all of the things that I had already researched, and then proceeded to question my times because wrong sources say something else, as well as ruining the surprise that there is a second band. We had 4 hours from arrival to the venue opening. My plan was to drop off things at the hotel, go to the venue area, eat some food, and see a show. Well, she says that she will need an hour to prepare at the hotel, and I accept that. She says she will be wearing a revealing outfit and doesn't want to be wearing it everywhere. When we arrive in the city, I step aside to look at Google, but she doesn't even let me look before she starts giving instructions on where to go. She's in a busy crowd talking in a low voice, so I can't make out what she's saying. I tell her to speak up, and she says some track numbers. I then go to where there's a sign with numbers, but it's wrong. And then she blames me for misunderstanding. We find a train and get to our station, and she's still giving instructions that I can't hear. I then see an exit with a street name that I know is close to the hotel, and I decide to take it. She annoyedly says, why did you take this? It wasn't the right one. And I'm like, how is it wrong? It's the right right street. We'd be walking the same distance underground. She continues pointing out how other exits were more right as we walk past them. We get to the hotel room and sit down to cool off, and I then take my pants off, expecting her to start preparing soon, but also let her have a moment to chill. After 45 minutes, she has shown absolutely no initiative. I ask if she's starting soon, but she says no. She wants to go get food. I ask why she didn't say this instead of just sitting here, but she then blames me for taking off my pants, as if I couldn't simply put them back on again. I then say that I thought we agreed to eat by the venue, but according to her, not wanting to wear the outfit everywhere implied that we wouldn't. So wearing the outfit on the way to the venue is fine, but making me stop on the way isn't. I mean, what's going on right now? At this point, I had just had enough. I had put together this sweet gift for her. I'd made sure we had time to make a plan, and I've been flexible to accommodate her, and all I hear is complaining. So I got my ticket, I gave her the key, and I said that she can do things her way, and then I left. I then walked around for a bit. I knew I was being dramatic, and I just didn't want this situation. She then calls me up, but I didn't pick up. Then, after receiving some awful text messages from her, I went to the venue by myself, and I didn't look back. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I honestly don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. It sounds like your girlfriend is being obnoxious. Seriously, if my significant other was like, hey, I planned out this really cool thing with your favorite band, and did it in such a way where I literally don't have to worry about anything, I wouldn't then go around and be like, oh, you did this wrong. This is not the street we're supposed to take. What are you doing? Or even begin to blame them for stuff going wrong that I agreed to do in the first place. Like, talk about being so ungrateful for what she was given. So yeah, your girlfriend's being super unreasonable, and honestly, I can see this all falling apart very badly. Because what you did for her was very kind, and you did not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. I'm considering breaking up with my boyfriend after he lost his job and has shown left and right that he is not responsible in any relationship. But right now, he's saying that I'm being selfish and that I should support him through his hard times, leaving me wondering if I'm making the right decision or not. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for 4 months. He's 28 years old and I'm 26. Over the past couple of months, he shared that he has ADHD and that he is now medicated. He is extremely smart, but can come off as arrogant and outspoken. He has had problems with authority, following directions, and generally has a rebellious nature. As an adult, he has accumulated a warrant from a criminal misdemeanor charge, a suspended license, and a major debt. Initially, I looked past these things. I was apprehensive, but realized that I've had my own challenges in the last few years that I'm also working on, and he's not a bad person for making mistakes. I mean, I'm not perfect and would also want compassion. I've shared multiple times that I am wary of the future with him, but I am willing to see where things go. We've had discussions about his plan to save money and tackle each of these issues within the next year or so. In the meantime, we've gotten along great. We fell in love and he's my best friend. We have an amazing connection and he makes me feel so loved and happy. However, 2 months ago, he lost his job. Now his whole plan is out the window because whatever he had saved before is gone and he is now in survival mode. And this obviously prolongs the timeline of him getting back on his feet. I then found out that he has lost almost every job he's ever had because of his smart mouth and simply not respecting his boss. The last couple of months have been a real test for me to look past these things when considering the lifestyle that I want for myself and whether he aligns with it or draws me farther away. He is currently an unreliable and undisciplined person going through a difficult time mostly due to bad decisions. I've basically decided that I don't see a future with him based on his current situation and have mentioned that he should focus on getting back on his feet first and tackling some of his issues before considering dating me or anyone right now. Is it shallow of me to want a man who has some stability? I mean, I need to be able to trust that my partner can solve and handle his own messes. I am a very avoidant person and I like to play things safe, and he feels like such a risk. I am nervous about the future and I don't want to get stuck with someone who isn't responsible. What would be the point of dating someone if I feel that we aren't in agreement on core values and beliefs regarding finances or even socially acceptable behaviors? His stance is that I am superficial for not loving him for who he is or even wanting to support him through this hard time. He believes that I'm overthinking the future and should enjoy our time together now, making my decision if something arises. While this is a good point, in my opinion, why would I wait until I'm in a bad place to cut him out of my life if I can avoid it right now? What should I do? Okay, I've got to be completely honest here because I don't think your boyfriend is a winner at all. And I don't say that lightly because seriously, let's look at the evidence here. This guy is a literal criminal. He's got a warrant out for his arrest and for having some debts. Like seriously, this guy's proving that he doesn't have any capabilities of being a good partner. He's even got a suspended license for crying out loud. Like this guy does not sound like a good person at all. So in that regard, you have every every right to step away and be like, listen, this is not working, and I think you need to get your life figured out before you start dating anybody. And I honestly can't stand the fact that you're like, oh, he's such a good person, he deserves a second chance. And yeah, he does deserve a second chance, but he's got to get his crap figured out first. That second chance does not mean that you have to be the one to do it. Like, that overarching idea absolutely counts, and I completely agree with you, but you should not have to sacrifice your happiness or stability to make that happen. That literally has to come from him, in my opinion, and I really believe that. So honestly, I don't blame you if you do want to break up with your boyfriend, because in my opinion, he does not sound like a good one in the first place. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that if he wants a cleaner home, we can either do it together at the end of the day, or he can do it himself? Because right now he's implying that I should take all of it on, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband regularly expresses that he wants a cleaner, more organized home, but refuses to come up with any plan where we work together to make that happen. He just wants me to magically fit more cleaning into my day. For context, he works from home and works a very flexible position where he can take breaks mostly at his leisure. He isn't on the phone or in constant meetings. He can fit in workouts, walk with a dog, shower sometimes multiple times a day, and he cooks dinner every night, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Now, I work part-time nights and weekends. My commute is about 45 minutes long, and my shifts in the weekends last 10 hours. During the week, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning preparing for the children's days. They do hybrid schooling, where they do in-person learning Tuesday through Thursday in the morning, all the way up until lunchtime, and then are homeschooled the rest of the time. Mondays, I attend a homeschool co-op that lasts most of the day. On the in-person days, I am driving them around all morning as they go to 2 different places, and spent the few hours they are gone running errands, taking care of the animals, taking a shower, doing chores, etc. Fridays is their extracurricular day where they do horseback riding and skating, so I'm gone all day doing that. Now, I do plenty of cleaning and chores, but I am doing them with the kids. They help me with everything, but in turn, it takes twice as long because they're only 4 and 6 years old, and they're still learning to help with everything. He thinks that because he can get more done on the weekends than I do during the week, that I'm somehow not doing enough. But he also stays home most weekends, lets the kids watch hours and hours of TV, and doesn't have them help. So the way we go about the day is very different. I've told him I'm already going from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night without ever taking a rest. I'm going crazy doing as much as I can. I have a planner where every page is full, showing all the things that I've done, be it with homeschooling or chores, and I can't fit anything else in. I have said if he wants more done, we can either work together as a team at night to do it, or he can replace one of the leisure activities that he does during his workday with more cleaning when everyone else isn't home. Well, he says that I'm the jerk for not being able to rearrange my day just to better fit in chores, and that he works full-time and makes dinner, and at the end of the night wants to relax, and that cleaning doesn't need to be a group project. I feel like I also want to relax at the end of the day and already start my night much later than he does. But even then, I would be willing to do it as a team. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, the fact that this guy is not willing to help out and clean at all, in my opinion, is so unacceptable. This has to be a team effort because yes, you're both very busy, but it really sounds like you're the only one cleaning the house and he's sitting there trying to be like, oh, you need to do more. And that is so unacceptable in my opinion. Like, that really is super annoying. So no, you're not the jerk here because in my opinion, the way he's acting is incredibly selfish. An entitled customer loses his mind after we inform him that he can't return an item that's 12 years old, because now he's demanding to talk to a supervisor, and I'm honestly so annoyed by this entire scenario. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a call center for a certain members-only bulk store chain, specifically in the online branch. One of the perks we offer our customers is an almost comically lenient return policy. We started limiting certain electronics to 90 days from the date of delivery back in 2016, and this will be important later on. And our return teams needs to look over and approve any returns for orders over 2 years old, but by and large will accept just about anything. Now, I like this policy. It's a lot easier for me to just process a return than it is to argue with the customer for 20 minutes about how, no sir, it is not our fault that you didn't think to open the box until well after 90 days, and now the computer doesn't work. I can get you over to warranty, but beyond that, my hands are tied. The customers like this policy because it means they basically can return stuff whenever they want within reason. Returns usually approves the 2+ year requests unless it's something egregiously dumb, and the key word there is within reason. Now, it's early into my shift, and I don't think I'd ever had my first break at this point. Phones are dead at this time of day, as is typical once the holiday order rush and the post-holiday return rush subsides. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what in the world 71 down on my crossword puzzle is when a call finally comes comes through. I snap to attention, give my spiel, and I ask the guy what he needs. He then says to me, "Nobody came to pick up the stove I'm returning. They delivered the new one and took the gas range, but I still have an electric one to return." I then said, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that, sir, but I'd be happy to see what's going on." I then checked the logistics scheduler, and the only return this guy has is for the one that got picked up. I ask him if he has the order number for the item being returned, and of course he doesn't. I pull up his order history and I ask him when he ordered the item. And for a bit of context, the order history that we see on our end only goes back to about 2017, but it's then that this guy says that he thinks he bought it in August of 2013. So it's then that I realize that it's going to be one of those calls, because this honestly is about to get really messy. I'm honestly not looking forward to having to fart around in the DOS system to try and find this guy's order number, but at this point I'm thinking he just had an old phone number on the order, and that's why his pickup isn't in our scheduler with the rest of his orders. After about 20 minutes of checking every single membership number on file in our DOS system, as the guy claimed he had never changed his membership number at any point, which by the way he was wrong, as well as his multiple assertions that the last people just pulled it right up, I finally find the order. Well, lo and behold, the return is canceled because our returns team didn't think refunding a 12-year-old stove because it stopped working is in the spirit of our return policy, since it's highly unlikely the issue is caused by a manufacturing defect at this point. Now, I could go on about planned obsolescence and how things used to be built to last, but unfortunately 12 years is honestly a pretty hefty shelf life, especially for a home appliance these days, and it's definitely well out of any warranty that we have. I explain this to the customer as gingerly as I can, and he demands to know why we didn't just tell him this years ago. He goes on to scream, "I'm grandfathered into your 90-day policy, aren't I? When did that change? Why didn't you tell me years ago that you were not going to accept my return anymore? I need to escalate this right now." I try to explain to him that these sorts of situations are handled on a case-by-case basis, and it's less that there's a hard limit now, and more that a 12-year-old appliance starting to have issues can't really be considered a manufacturing defect that we're somehow obligated to refund you for. Well, even though I explained it, he is still not having it and asking for a supervisor. So I just say, "Okay, you got it, sir." I kick him over to my supervisor and I move on, but not before he gives me this final gem. He says to me, "If I had known you wouldn't accept my return now, I would have returned this years ago." So basically, he just admitted he wanted us to pay him to haul away his junk rather than actually thinking his stove reaching the end of its lifespan was a manufacturer defect. It's like, dear God, I'm so glad this job pays well, because customers like this are truly ridiculous. Oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Dude, your stove is 12 years old. He can't possibly think he's still gonna get a return for it after what, 12 years? That is seriously some entitled behavior from a customer I have not heard of in a long time. But either way, good for you for the way you handled this, because this guy was completely out of his mind. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for uninviting someone from my wedding after she just spent $2,000 on my bachelorette party? Because right now, some of my friends are saying I was being a little bit too harsh, but at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I had my bachelorette party last month, and this was an international trip with 13 girls. Now, most of them live in City 1, where I grew up but no longer reside. I now live in City 2, which is a short flight or about a 6-hour drive away. One of the girls, who we will call Rachel, was a high school friend I reconnected with 2 years ago after getting engaged. She recently started dating someone new in City 2, which is my city, and she spent the entire trip FaceTiming him at events, the club, the beach, the yacht, while getting ready, even in the shower. Worst of all, she dragged other girls into her calls, even though they barely know her, let alone him. She also FaceTimed while people were changing or while she herself was getting ready and not wearing a lot of clothes. At one point, she got into an argument with her boyfriend and handed the phone to her roommate, who we will call Jamie. And Jamie, by the way, had never met him and was essentially forced into this fight. Well, Jamie, being fed up, hung up and later asked to switch rooms. When she wasn't FaceTiming, she was talking about him nonstop. At dinner, she kept blurting out, "I'm moving to city number 2 and we're gonna be neighbors." But when I asked about her kids, she vaguely said she'd fly or drive home every weekend. Now, this is a mom of 2 with 2 different dads moving for a boyfriend of 1 month. One night during a private chef dinner, the power went out and Rachel's phone died, and everybody withheld their portable chargers. She then booked a hotel on someone else's phone, packed her bags, and left to charge her phone. And another woman, who we will call Mandy, was being way too nice and walked with her. On the way, Rachel suddenly desperately needed to call her kids, which was hilarious since she hadn't mentioned them once. Unfortunately, when the power came back, so did Rachel. Later, while we were playing Bachelorette games, she blurted out some awful slurs during Mad Libs. And when that happened, I snapped and the room went silent. We had a shared photo album for group pictures, and Rachel uploaded hundreds of selfies, thirst traps and FaceTime screenshots, texts about how her boyfriend was the one, and even mirror selfies from a store where she was trying on clothing without underwear on. One dress even had a cut in it, and trust me, it was showing way more than it should have. My fiance was getting updates from some of the girls, and he even asked Jamie to talk to Rachel, and he himself sent her a message about being more self-aware and to please stop FaceTiming this guy. But still, nothing changed. After the trip, I sent Rachel a message, thanking her for coming, but also making it very clear that her behavior was completely unacceptable. And I also told her that she was no longer invited to my wedding. Well, she read it and she never responded. Some friends think that I was harsh since she spent time and money to celebrate me. But just to be clear, I'm not cutting her off because I didn't feel like the center of attention. This is about how deeply uncomfortable she made everybody. Since I got back, I've heard even more crazy stories that the girls kept from me because they saw how upset I was. So seriously, am I the jerk for uninviting her? Because right now I honestly don't know what to do. I don't think you did anything wrong by excluding her from your wedding. Like seriously, this lady sounds super obnoxious. She basically ruined your bachelorette party, and she really was going to be like a problem pretty much no matter what. Because the way she went about doing this was so obnoxious. I can understand doing this at like the end of the day or maybe like checking in every once in a while, but literally it sounds like every single moment was spent around like FaceTiming this guy. And the part about her doing it while people were changing or when she was completely undressed, like that in my opinion is just really invasive, and that is not okay. So no, I don't blame you for not inviting her to your wedding because that probably would have happened there as well. And that sounds like some unnecessary drama that I would never want to deal with. Today I was incredibly insulted after my hospital roommate called me ugly. And even though she said it in Russian, which I can understand, she assumed that I wouldn't know exactly what she was saying about me. So I decided to expose her and embarrass her in a way that I'm sure she will never forget. Here's what happened. When I was a sophomore in college, my appendix ruptured, and I spent a couple of weeks in the hospital off and on dealing with various infections and surgery. During my first hospital stay, I shared a room with an older Russian woman who had just had a gastric bypass. I never said a word to her, and I just kind of kept to myself watching TV and chatting with my mom when she came to visit. I felt kind of bad that I had to walk my IV pole past her to use the bathroom because I didn't want to disturb her. So I tried to be as quiet as possible and limit the number of trips that I made. This lady had the habit of talking really loudly on the phone to her daughter, and since she heard me speaking English to my mom, I guess she assumed that I couldn't understand her. Well, I just started learning Russian as a freshman, so I didn't understand everything that she was saying, but I could gather bits and pieces. One night, she's on the phone with her daughter, and she says something to the tune of, "I don't have the room to myself anymore. I'm sharing it with this girl, and she's really ugly." Now, obviously, I didn't look great because I had a ruptured appendix, and I was just trying to stay alive at that point, and I didn't really care what she thought of me. It just bothered me that she thought it was okay to talk trash about me to her daughter in front of me just because she thought I couldn't understand her. Plus, on top of that, I was bored, and I wanted the satisfaction of making her eat her words. So the next time I was wheeling my IV pole past her to use the bathroom, I put on my sweetest smile and said in my best Russian accent, "Excuse me." Well, after that, she didn't really say anything to me, but she also never called her daughter again while I was there because she knew I could understand every single word coming out of her stupid mouth. Wow, that really is such a toxic thing to do, especially when you consider the fact that we live in a day and age where people learn multiple languages all the time. There are so many programs out there that can help you learn another language that nowadays it just doesn't seem like a good idea to talk trash about someone in a language that you think they can't speak. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it really seems like that would be a bad idea regardless of the circumstance. So good for you for calling that lady out, because honestly, nobody deserves to be treated that way, regardless of if you think they can understand you or not. My coworker gets mistreated by customers in a way that's honestly completely unreasonable and totally out of nowhere, leaving me and my coworkers incredibly confused. Here's what happened. So I currently work as a self-checkout cashier in a chain store. One night, I was helping a middle-aged couple when they were having difficulty using the produce menu. Their interactions with me were pleasant, but a remark they made about one of my fellow cashiers, let's call her Shelly for the sake of the story, completely caught me off guard. They said that she was mean and bizarrely that she should be working in a prison, and those were the words they used verbatim. For reference, Shelly is a relatively new coworker, but in the time that I've worked with her, I've known her to be one of the most pleasant and easygoing people in my department. So to say I was flabbergasted to hear that was an understatement. I just gave a non-committal "oh, I see" response and finished helping them. After they left, I went and told Shelly what they said about her, and she was just as surprised as I was. She had assisted them in purchasing some cigarettes a few minutes prior to me helping them, and she simply couldn't figure out what went down in their interactions that would make them say that about her. I mean, I was about 2 feet away from them for most of that interaction too, and Shelly was nothing but her usual sweet self. A little bit later, she and I and other coworkers who Shelly told it to came to the conclusion that the customers must have been salty about the fact that they had to get ID'd for the cigarettes. We get a lot of complaints about it, but it's literally just the store policy, and Shelly was perfectly polite about it. But apparently to them, upholding a store policy that inconveniences them suddenly makes her the store's answer to a warden. And honestly, we're still confused about that because she seriously did nothing wrong. Okay, I'm gonna say something that I think a lot of people can agree with, especially if you spend any kind of time in retail, because I'm convinced that customers will find any reason to complain. You could be the most polite person on planet Earth, and they will still be like, oh, you should be working in a prison. Like seriously, Shelly didn't do anything wrong. Just because they're following store policy and they're following, oh, I don't know, the law, doesn't mean that they didn't give you like fantastic service. Customers who complain like this are really just spoiled brats who just want to get everything they want whenever they want. And when anything's outside of their norm, then they freak out and treat you like garbage and pretend like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have a job. Because I guarantee the one time that Shelly doesn't check someone's ID, that's the time they get caught and then she gets fired. So yeah, customers like this are incredibly stupid, and honestly, Shelly did not deserve to get treated like this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for asking my friend to pay me for helping him move to another apartment? Because right now he's blown away that I would ask that, even though he charged me for snowboarding lessons not even a few weeks ago. Here's what happened. Okay, so this whole thing was about a month ago when I asked my friend, we'll call him Chris for the sake of the story, if he would be down to helping me with some snowboarding tips. For reference, he's an experienced snowboarder, and years ago he used to give private lessons as a side job. I've known Chris for maybe 15 years, and we are really close friends. He was on board, so we decided we would go to the slopes one Saturday, and he would basically teach me the basics. And I've been snowboarding maybe 3 times up to this point, and it's safe to say I'm not very good at it. However, he said he had one condition, that I would have to pay him for the lesson. Now, I was kind of taken aback by that, as I kind of view the whole thing as a friendly favor and just some time that we could spend together and do something that we both enjoy. Nevertheless, I agreed to give him the money, even though I don't really agree with this and would personally never charge a friend for something like this. Well, about 2 weeks after that, he messaged me saying he's moving flats, and he asked me if I would help him move all the furniture and boxes with stuff out of the flat and into the moving van. Now, I have to admit, I kind of saw this as an opportunity to see what would happen if I asked him to pay me for helping him. So, you know what? I did. I said, okay, what's the wage? He then laughed and I didn't say anything, and then, seeing my poker face, he said to me, wait, are you serious? I said to him, well, yeah, since you charged me for snowboarding, I would say it's fair that I charge you for this. He then went into a rant about how it's not the same thing at all, and then we got into an argument over that. So genuinely, am I the jerk here for asking for money to help my friend move? Because right now, I'm not sure if I did something wrong. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here because this very easily could have been like an exchange of like services in some kind of way. Your friend could have easily said, hey, I'll absolutely help you out with like snowboarding lessons or whatever, but in exchange, could you help me move flats in like 2 weeks? Or something like that. Like this really could have been a situation where it's like, oh, I scratch your back and then you will scratch mine. Because sure, I totally understand that this used to be his side job or something he did just to like, I don't know, make ends meet, but it also sounds like he doesn't do this that much anymore, and you were literally just asking as a friend. So no, I don't think you're out of line for asking him to pay you for your time, because that's exactly what he did to you. And in my opinion, if he really wants to charge you for snowboarding lessons, then I think you're completely right for asking for money when he asked you to help him move. An entitled customer talks smack about the employees in front of their boss, causing all the work that was going to be done on his car to be delayed until weeks out, all simply out of spite for his awful behavior. Here's what happened. So my shop has a fair amount of drama lately due to the political climate, and my boss having to put up with stupid people questioning why our mechanics speak Spanish around customers. My boss makes it clear to these people to mind their own business, and if they want to go somewhere else, then Pep Boys, dealerships, and Walmart are in the next town over. That generally shuts them up, because a tow to the next town over is $350 one way with a bad tow truck, and it's $500 on the flatbed. Well, in comes this entitled jerk who we will call Dan, and this dude has a stick so far up his butt, it's guaranteed to stand square at an intersection. Dan drives a new Honda sedan, and somehow thinks it's the same thing as a 4x4 because he couldn't afford a truck. He basically ripped the plastic skid plate and somehow got it wrapped around one of the half sheets, making a lot of noise with a burning plastic smell. He demanded that we fix it quick because he needs to get back before he goes to LA. My boss warned him we could take it off, but there might be other damage caused by the plastic. But he didn't want to hear it, and then he turned his attention to some tech goofing off, laughing, and replying to someone in Spanish. speech. He said something like, well, if you hired some proper mechanics, they would get stuff done faster. Well, my boss took that as incredibly disrespectful and told him right then and there that he's gonna have to wait a week, maybe even 5, just to replace the part, or he can drive it out to the next town. It's either that or he can have it towed. Well, Dan basically had to kick some rocks and leave his car, and he walked home. And now he has to wait 2 weeks for a job we finished at the end of the night last weekend, all with a replacement only costing $75, because surprisingly, he didn't do any serious damage to his car except for the plastic cover. Okay, I love this story because Dan absolutely had it coming. Just because they were joking around in Spanish doesn't mean they're not doing their job. Like, let's think about it for a second, Dan. They're probably in this job because they know what they're doing. So for you to say something like that is not only incredibly rude, but just so stupid. Like, this guy literally shot himself in the foot in terms of having any kind of good customer service. At that point, I don't blame you guys for being like, oh yeah, it's gonna take a couple of weeks. Because this guy was being super obnoxious, and in my opinion, he deserved to be punished. An entitled Karen demands that I no longer let my dog go to the bathroom in her yard ever again, which is honestly an ironic statement to make because I literally have never met this woman once in my life. Here's what happened. Earlier this week, I was walking my dog. The weather has finally warmed up to above 0 degrees after weeks of -30, so we were both very excited to get out. I was walking through a public park, basically this green space that bordered by this apartment parking lot. I know for a fact this green space is public property and not meant for the apartments only because I work for the municipality and it is our responsibility to maintain this area. Well, this entitled Karen is parked in a truck halfway on the public sidewalk and halfway on the parking lot, and she is literally straight up blocking the sidewalk. So I end up awkwardly walking around her truck in the parking lot to get around. She then rolls her window down and calls out to me. She says to me, "Excuse me, can you do me a favor?" Now, I assumed that she was just a nice lady who needed my help really quickly, so I turned around and I said, "Oh sure, what do you need?" She then says to me, "I need you to stop letting your dog go to the bathroom in my yard." Now, I was initially confused and immediately went to apologize. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, is this part of your yard?" And I pointed at the sidewalk that I was just on. She says to me, "No, my yard's over there." And she vaguely gestures at the apartment in the opposite direction. Now, I was just kind of confused and off-put, so I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, I guess." She then says to me, "Yeah, you need to keep your dog on a leash and clean up after it. Stop letting it run around my yard." And literally right now, I'm standing there with my dog on a leash and poop bags in my hand. I say to her, "Yeah, okay, no problem." And at this point, I was really just confused and I started walking away and laughing at her because it just wasn't worth my time engaging. And right now, I'm just so baffled. I haven't walked in that area in over a month, and my dog is always on a leash. I always clean up after her. I've never seen this lady in my life, and neither me nor my dog certainly haven't been in her yard. She initially spoke to me in a really friendly tone, and then quickly became aggressive and accusatory for no real reason. She wasn't senile either. It's not like she was just some angry old lady. She was like 40 years old. The only thing I can think of is that there's a part of the green space that some dog owners have been neglecting to clean up after their pets. So maybe she's reacting that way to all dog owners. Regardless, the attitude was unnecessary. That is not her yard, and she could have just kindly asked me to make sure I clean up after my dog, because some pet owners in the area haven't been respectful of the space. And sure, maybe she got me confused with someone else that she had seen, but honestly, I could never know because she was incredibly rude. Oh man, I can't stand when people do that. If there's one thing that like lights my hair on fire, it's when I get blamed for something that I did not do. If I didn't do it and I really had nothing to do with whatever's going on, when someone blames me for that, regardless of what it is, like that really pisses me off in a way that I just don't think is rational, but also it's like, why are you blaming me for this? So I completely understand where the original poster is coming from. You're literally just walking your dog. You haven't been there in over a month, and this lady's trying to be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you need to stop letting your dog crap in my yard." First of all, it's not your yard, so let's get that straight. But also, what are you talking about? I don't even live here. You're literally going to a public park to let your dog walk, and this lady's trying to be like, "Stay out of my yard." If I was in that scenario, I would be like, "Oh, that's fine. I'll totally take care of my dog. But in the meantime, can you learn how to park?" She is literally blocking the sidewalk with her stupid truck. Like, are you kidding me right now? This is a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black. So yeah, this Karen was out of line because the way she was acting was completely unhinged. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.